Every year, the Royal Institute of British Architects holds a competition to find Britain's best new house. And after the success of last year's televised event, I'm giddily excited to say that House of the Year is back with even more of these exceptional homes. We'll be taking you behind normally closed doors. Oh, ow, too small, that door. To see some of the most original and mind-boggling houses in the running for this competition, all of which have won the hearts and minds of the judges.
A large, black, charcoal textured box.
We'll be looking at the long list before we discover the shortlisted homes and then finally the winner of this great architectural prize.
Beam me up, Scotty.
It's very zen. And then, at the end of the series, we'll be finding out, here on Channel 4, which one of the homes is the RIBA House of the Year for 2016. These homes are truly remarkable. Each one is an example. We can take inspiration from all of them. So, come inside and have a good nosy around. In this series, we are visiting some of the best new contemporary homes in Britain, which are all in the running for the Royal Institute of British Architects House of the Year. Architecture's sort of BAFTAs. There's such a sumptuous array of buildings to choose from that I've grouped them into some loose categories that suggest where new architecture is heading. We'll be seeing houses that reinvent small spaces. Houses that are exquisitely playful. And houses that make the most of awkward sites. Joining me exploring these glorious homes are architectural designer Damion Burrows.
There's no protecting modesty, is there?
And architect Zach Monro.
It's all about the view, isn't it?
In this programme, we're looking at houses that dare to enjoy the luxury of being built in some of the most beautiful rural settings in the UK. The great architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, said that no house should ever be on a hill or on anything. It should be of the hill, belonging to it. Hill and house should live together and each be the happier for the other. A good building, after all, ought to enhance its setting. This first house doesn't just belong to the hill, it's become a part of it. Right on the border between England and Wales is the Forest of Dean. An ancient, beautiful, and relatively unmolested landscape. So the question is, how do you get permission to build a significant new house on the side of a hill overlooking an unspoilt, beautiful valley like this? Well, the answer is partly with camouflage. You make the house part of the hill. This is Outhouse, a long, low building that projects just one single-storey facade to the open valley. Built of concrete, it's generous at 490 square metres of living space, broken up with 3 courtyards that shelter you from the wind. It's home to 2 artists, Michael and Jean, who each have their own studio here. It is a house of 2 halves. At the front are the south-facing living areas, kitchen, dining, living room and 2 principal bedrooms. Running behind them is a 45-metre-long hallway, almost an interior road, behind which sits the workaday stuff. 2 artist workspaces lit by skylights, a guest bedroom and a plant room. Those skylights and internal courtyards suck light into the building. Remarkably, given its size, it appears very modest from the outside. This, by the way, is the owner's preferred method of transport in the building. Coming into it,
There's an enticing staircase there that leads up to the wildflower meadow. Oh, pretty amazing view out there. And over the threshold, a large, black, charcoal textured box. Look, a garden. And behind that, a kitchen. Next to that, the sitting room, taking in those gobsmacking views. An enclosed garden, another one, second one. It's important because the building doesn't have formal gardens outside, so it captures these formal spaces. And through here, look, this is Michael's studio. Fantastic. Artist at work. Moving on, another little garden there. And then, out into the biggest garden, which is where the road stops.
This is a big live-work project for the owners to have taken on.
So tell me about where you were living and why you moved here.
Trying to heat a Tudor house with oil-fired radiators is just hopeless. We wanted to build from scratch because the only way in which you can make an energy-efficient house is to start from the beginning, because you can then insulate the thing massively, which is 9/10 of the job, really.
The house is super insulated thermally and also visually. The RIBA judges light the way its thick green roof runs backwards and up into the hill. It's a world away from what was here before, a run-down farmhouse with garage and pigsty, which stood on the site.
It is a very relaxing building. It seems to be full of a lot of spaces for contemplation.
Yes.
So I wonder, how do you design that in?
Well, I suppose with this one, I should go back to the origin of it. Where do you position a big building in that context? And came up with the idea, well, you anchor it by its history. And so we left the buildings, or the footprints of the buildings where they were, and scooped the meadow over the top.
It took me a while to figure it out, but basically wherever there'd been a building, that's where the black walls are. And then the road represents the road, the track that drove through the farm.
And it was on the line of the old driveway.
Yeah.
It's a lovely architectural trick. Everything is flipped inside out. Each former building that was an inside space is now a courtyard. The old outdoor yards and track are now the new building wrapped around them.
Chris asked us what we liked, and one of the things I said was courtyards. This is the footprint of the pigsty. So we're sitting in the pigsty right now.
There was only one real sticking point on the project. Chris Loyne, the architect, wanted to keep the original building's stone walls.
It was the only battle we had. And we said no, we couldn't have it because of the pictures. It wouldn't look good.
You need your wall hanging space.
Yeah.
Because the black is a very good foil for the art.
So we felt terrible about it.
It's your client's home in the end. Architects can become too arrogant sometimes, and I've made my case. I love the stone, but we wanted still to recognise the decisions that we've made about organising a building on the site by retaining the locations and the imprints of the original buildings. So we did them in the black concrete.
I can see straight into Jean's bedroom. And into Michael's bedroom. Scooting into the kitchen. Oh, herb garden. Oh, gravel. Oh, no,
And of course, being artists, they have placed their own mark on the fabric of the building.
Jean's art particularly, she does a
Lots
lot
of work
with
with twigs and natural forms.
And it's 50 or so metres long.
Yeah.
She did it.
What? The whole lot?
She's the artist. She pressed them in. Beautiful.
This is an exquisite, poetic place that hums to the creativity of the architecture and the artist.
I can remember coming in for the first time and I was absolutely so knocked out by it. Thought it was wonderful. I rang up Chris and told him, said that I was so thrilled with it.
I arrived here, got into that studio, and I haven't come out ever since. It's been very exciting. And now I can feel very much at one with this space.
You might think that the genius of this place resides in the way that it glints in a come-hither way across the valley, and yet, up close, hides itself into the hill. But I disagree, see, because I think its genius resides in its earthy bones, in the board-marked concrete, these plant markings in these slabs. This building is as disarmingly open, welcoming, warm, and honest as the people that own it.
I hope Outhouse has whetted your appetite to see more of the many astonishing homes on this year's RIBA longlist for House of the Year. But what makes a winner? Last year, Flint House in Buckinghamshire took the prize, astonishing the judges in a display of craftsmanship and almost geological solidity. And its architect, Charlotte Skeen-Catling, gets a spot on the jury this year.
We're looking at projects of very different scale, very different complexity.
So what are the judges hoping to find?
I think we're looking for something that is ultimately inspiring, has responded well to a site, trying to sort of make the spaces feel, I guess, lived in as well. You know, a place you can call home is important. This is House of the Year, after all.
We're looking for something that surpasses people's imagination or people's ambition. So each one has a task, if you like, to make the lives of the people that commission them that much better and richer.
Which makes the competition to find just one winner, of course, unbelievably tough.
We have 4 more beautiful, bucolic new homes yet to see before we find out which of them are on the 2016 shortlist.
Coming up, a loving restoration project in Wiltshire.
The timbers themselves, I mean, they're just fantastic.
You could be forgiven for thinking that the House of the Year award only applies to new buildings, but our next house shows that the RIBA judges value just as highly projects that lovingly bring our architectural heritage back from the dead and make it fit for the 21st century.
Ansty Plum in Wiltshire was built in 1962. Now, pay close attention because this house has plenty of pedigree. It was designed by David Levitt, a famous 60s architect, and it shares the site with a garden studio later designed by yet another esteemed architectural duo. The 165 square metre house has been carefully resurrected into a 2-storey, 2-bedroom home. The ground floor is open plan with a living room and dining room at the front end and a kitchen tucked in behind. The first floor is home to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Damion Burrows went to meet owner Sandra and see it for himself.
Hello. Hi, Sandra. How are you?
Ansty Plum.
Thank you for inviting me. This house is amazing. I absolutely love it. This is wonderful.
The interior is a reverential time capsule of classic mid-century modern style. Lovingly restored swathes of natural brick and exposed structural timbers.
The timbers themselves, I mean, they're just fantastic. The slope of the roof, your eye is drawn right to the very top, to the very little apex of the roof up there.
Although the house isn't listed, architects Sandra and her business partner Bev both wanted the renovation to stay doggedly faithful to David Levitt's original design.
His interest was always in low-cost social housing, and he used this project for working through ideas. And I think the fact that it was built on such a low budget for £5,000 probably suited him perfectly, because it demanded that he approach it with a rigour in order to ensure that there was no excess. It's interesting how it's designed. It's based on the size of an 8x4 piece of ply, so that none was cut and none was wasted.
The house is now a retreat for Sandra, husband Nico, and their 2 children, Anna and Eva. But when they bought it, it was in no real shape to live in.
It was over 50 years old. Parts of it had reached the end of their useful life.
Yes.
And it had no heating. It was so cold. It always felt damp. And there was this moment after dinner, my husband went to the fridge and he opened the fridge to put something away. And it was warmer inside the fridge than out. And he sat there like this to try and warm up in front of the fridge. So while it had been loved and looked after, it was in a perilous state. And we understood that we had to intervene quite quickly in order to protect what we felt was a very valuable building. There was a lot of unpicking. It's like your favorite woolly jumper that's been moth-eaten, and you start to have to unravel bits of it before you can start knitting it back together.
I think it's at points like this where you really get a sense of how everything was to an absolute minimum. I mean, these stairs are barely shoulder width. Arriving here in the main bedroom, you really do get a sense of just how close you are to the woodland outside. This is fantastic. I mean, I can just imagine it now. Nice sunny day, sat here at your desk working away, and you've got a beautiful view of all of the dense woodland and the lovely wild flower beds. You've got all of your files and your paperwork here that you need, and it's all framed by this beautifully crafted piece of joinery that also doubles as your bedhead. That's fantastic. It's a really nice piece of design.
So, Damion, this is the children's room. This platform was here originally, and then the rest of the joinery we added. And a lot of the reason for adding it was to conceal the pipework so that we could get heating into this room.
It actually feels like downstairs. For me, this feels like a condensed version of the house. You have the same slope of the roof.
And what it does, it allows each of them to have their own space, as if they had their own bedroom, in what is a tiny one-bedroom house.
And their own little private play area as well.
The whole rescue mission took 14 months. The floor had to be taken up, services underneath replaced, insulation and underfloor heating added before new concrete slabs could be relaid. The irony of this project is that it might never have happened if Sandra and her colleague Bev hadn't been out on an architectural tourist trip. It was the studio in the grounds that lured them here. It was designed in the 1970s by Peter and Alison Smithson, 2 of the most formidable British modernist architects of the mid-20th century. Their best-known work is probably Robin Hood Gardens in East London. But the studio is a different piece of work altogether, and it was in need of love.
Oh. This is such a fantastically warm studio. I love this timber panelling that you've brought through from the main house.
We had the original Smithson's drawings, and they showed that the whole place had been lined with plywood.
I love the detail that you have around the windows here as well.
Yeah, it's great. You get so much more light than you would expect, actually, coming through these very narrow windows.
It's almost like a sort of archer's slot, isn't it? And
It is.
medieval embankment.
Yeah, Peter Smithson called this Fort Rigby, and apparently the children used to shoot bows and arrows out through the windows.
Passers by. Oh, wow. This is gorgeous. It's a real treat.
The RIBA judges couldn't help but admire the way this place has been faithfully refreshed with such dedication.
This really, truly is an amazing project. Would it not just have been easier to build a new house from scratch?
We were not tempted for a moment. We recognised that this was something very, very special, that had somehow slipped through the 20th century virtually unnoticed.
For us, it's such a magical place.
Homes are dynamic things. They're constantly evolving. But I suppose one thing that I would like is that before I die, I'd like for it to be listed.
The renovation of Ansty Plum is a shining, fitting tribute to the original. The next house, however, won the judges' attention for a very different reason. Its ability to hide.
I'm in Angus in eastern Scotland, and it's a place that's not just rural, but it's agricultural. And if you're going to build a new home in a working landscape like this, then you're going to have to make it fit in.
And Zinc House does just this by borrowing the language of nearby agricultural buildings to look as much like a barn as a house. Actually, it truly is a reborn collection of abandoned farm sheds. This is a 525 square metre, 4-bedroom house. On the ground floor, there's a family room, kitchen, dining area and open-plan living room, and a guest bedroom. Upstairs, there's a master bedroom, study and 2 more bedrooms. And nestling close by is the garage with a home office above. The architect, Graham Sutton, was praised by the RIBA judges for tackling one of the questions of the moment. What should we be building in our rural landscapes?
We wanted to make something that basically situated itself into the landscape almost invisibly, but make a very modern house. It's sometimes quite difficult in big open spaces to actually ground buildings in their place.
While it signs itself off as a metal shed on the outside, on the inside it's anything but.
Hiya.
Hi, Zach. Come on in.
Thank you. What a lovely barn.
Thank you.
It's really bright. It's really bright, isn't it?
Yes. Even on a cloudy day.
And a fantastic view.
That's one of the reasons that attracted us to this site. We've lived in the area for a long time, and when the opportunity came up to look at building a house here, then we jumped at it.
IT consultant Richard lives here with his wife Jackie.
We like the large open plan idea and lots of glass to let light in, because the views and the light here is spectacular, and it changes obviously from day to day.
The interior is the opposite of agricultural. Plain, sleek, and in no small way luxurious.
If you're starting from scratch, you can do stuff like this, can't you? You can have a really clean cantilevered piece of kitchen.
Yes.
It's quite solid.
Very solid, yeah. You'll be able to sit on there, no problem.
Hey, it's quite odd to be able to sit on something that's sort of 2 metres hanging in the air. But actually really nice. It does free the space up.
It works very well, because I think the kitchen's very important to us. We spend a lot of time in the kitchen. We both enjoy cooking. We certainly spend a lot of time of the day just sitting in the kitchen.
This could be a 21st century farm on the outside that contained a modernist villa within, with, here and there, some suitably modest spaces. The excitement of this place lies in its accomplished respect for both its occupant and its setting. It nurtures people and resonates with its place. And with such a pressing need for more rural homes, it shows how we might build housing schemes in the countryside.
I mean, I see this as a sort of prototype, actually, for housing in the landscape. I think that's important.
We've now seen 3 of the 5 houses that have made it onto the long list. 2 more strong but very different contenders to go before we discover which are the chosen few. Coming up, California dreaming in Cornwall.
Having that volume above you, it really does frame this incredible widescreen view.
For centuries, the great architects of Western civilization have pursued the ideal of the perfect villa. Both Vitruvius 2,000 years ago and Palladio in the 16th century defined it as the rural home of the gentleman and lady, a home offering respite from the city and civilized, leisurely, contemplative refreshment. We'd recognise that as a boho house rural hotel spa masquerading as a farm, of course. Anyway, in the 20th century, Le Corbusier set the modern benchmark in terms of light, shadow, space. And our next house in Cornwall brings the idea into the 21st century, reimagining the villa as a contemporary Californian home. Perched right on an estuary is a house that seems to defy gravity. The RIBA judges loved the mysterious and dramatic entrance. Zach went to investigate. The 282 square metre, 4-bedroomed house is laid out in an L shape over 2 floors to capture the best of the views. Upstairs, on one side of the double-height entrance, are the main living room, dining area and kitchen. In the other wing, there's a master bedroom, a guest bedroom and a study. Downstairs are 2 more bedrooms, another study and a family room. But the most audacious thing here is the house's 11.5-metre-long cantilever, which juts right over the vertiginous site. It belongs to Helen and Paul, who swapped a hectic London life for a slice of Cornish living.
What a house. Oh, wow.
Come on in.
Thank you. Oh, gosh. Wow. That's one hell of an entrance.
So here it is.
Wow. Wow, that's quite unbelievable. What an incredible view. Is this what it was all about?
It was a big part of it. It was a change in lifestyle, and it was all about getting the maximum view. And what the architect's done is really extend it hugely. So we've now got a view from pretty much every single room in the house. We were both working flat out in London and just decided that, you know, enough was enough.
We wanted more of an outdoor life and to have much more link to the natural environment and the views and the life that you can have with it.
They live here with their teenage daughter, Holly. Removing the site's previous house was first on their to-do list. Holly helped get the demolition ball rolling. With the site cleared, over the next 15 months, 12 tons of steel and timber were carefully crafted together to build the frame. But this temple of glass and brick isn't the first of its kind alongside the estuary. Just below is Creek Vean, one of the most famous modernist houses in the UK, built in 1966 by a very young Richard Rogers and Norman Foster. The house is dramatically divided into 2 pavilions, with the entrance between. It was built from just blockwork and glass. It was way ahead of its time. A tough act to follow for architect John Pardee.
I was intimidated because Creek Vean is right below it. And that is one of the great houses in the UK. So I was like, oh crikey, I want to be compared to that. It was very angular, very simple, very beautifully detailed. That's inspiring for any architect. Any great house transcends its time. It has a touch of timelessness. So I wanted to kind of pay respect to it, no way copy it, although the plan pays some homage to the fact it's 2 wings, you enter in the middle.
The site also inspired John to draw from America's iconic case study houses. These were 36 prototype homes built between 1945 and 66 to show how new housing could be cheaply constructed during the post-war building boom. This historic experiment was concentrated around Los Angeles and redefined yet again the modernist villa.
Most of the case study houses were steel framed. Very thin steel frame will give you a lot of bang for your buck. You can do crazy things, big spans, glass walls, rather than one thing sitting on the other. And then a little later on, I realized if you could just stick this house out a bit, you'd be up in the air and it'd be amazing. And by placing that wing out, it faced due south. So it looks straight down the estuary, 7 miles. Can't beat that. That's my California moment, if you want one.
But California is not Cornwall, where coastal storms can pack a real punch.
We've had 85-mile-an-hour winds full force onto the glass.
Against this face
Yeah,
here.
and you see the glass move in that kind of wind. So the doors themselves, the sliding doors, are strengthened with steel bars to cope with that kind of wind loading.
And then there's this as well, was that to do with holding the thing up?
Yeah, that's a support for the cantilever, so there's a similar one underneath which anchors it to the ground.
The original design didn't have those in, but actually we're now quite happy that they're there. We're living here in winter, which we hadn't done before.
In addition to the columns, the cantilever has a main anchor, the massive chimney stack that rises right out of the ground.
This is actually structural, so it goes the whole way through the building.
It's marvellous in the winter. A glass of red wine in front of the log fire, can't beat it. It's fantastic.
The level of finish is clean and sharp everywhere.
It's quite a pleasure to actually cook, you know, and look out at the sea. When you come up the drive, it's fantastic. You know, you see the sea, but then if somebody's in the kitchen, you see them doing what they're doing and the movement in the room, and it's just really delightful.
And there are lots of mini cantilevers carefully placed through the building.
You probably noticed everything about the house and the furniture's cantilevered. We worked with John and these craftspeople and ourselves in designing what it was we wanted.
It's only really from above that you understand how the cranked L shape of the house maximises the plot by fitting tightly along the hillside's contours. John Pardey has extracted the maximum juice from this site and invented a new minimalist cocktail for living.
So this is where we keep our cookery books, which is nice and close to the kitchen. Just come across the entranceway and pick out what we want to cook for the evening.
So each one of these is a cupboard?
Yeah.
Yes. All the way along here?
Yeah.
The full length of the house?
Every room in this house drinks in a key ingredient of the cocktail, the magnificent views. Downstairs, there's plenty of direct access onto the garden. There's a media room, a study for Helen, and a guest bedroom.
Oh, it's another incredible view.
This is our outdoor dining space, really.
So that barbecue is the same piece of structure as the fireplace upstairs. And from here, the cantilever really does something special. Having that volume above you, it really does frame this incredible widescreen view across here.
That's one of the best aspects of this site down here, is that line across just really brings this view to perfection.
Connection, refreshment, and respite. What more could you ask of the modern villa?
This house does connect with the landscape in a really amazing way. The plan opens up to embrace this terrain, and this incredible cantilever lifts itself up and allows the landscape to go through underneath. That's the masterstroke.
We've now seen 4 of the 5 houses in this programme. One more to go before we discover which of them has made it onto the shortlist. And I can tell you, the last one comes out fighting. This is Jersey, an island that had to defend itself against both extreme weather and hostile invasions. When we build in our landscape, we forget that actually much of where we live is also seascape. We are a maritime nation, and we have also developed a language of architecture that reflects that, from Art Deco white hotels to kiss-me-quick seaside cottages. Thing is, though, the architecture that lasts is the architecture that can resist everything that the Atlantic can throw at us. I mean, the best buildings, really, are made from the materials, time-honoured ones, from which things like Martello towers and docks and lighthouses and ships were constructed. Steel, concrete, granite. And those are the materials from which you can build a fortress. And this house is a fortress and a 3-storey family home. It's covered in tough Core 10 steel, set behind granite walls, and its roof is low to resist incoming storms. This 472 square metre house is arranged as 2 separate wings, opening out from a central spine. In one wing sits the first floor kitchen, dining room, snug and living room. In the other wing, there's the master bedroom, dressing room and bathroom. Downstairs are 3 more bedrooms and a media room and sauna for good measure. The main staircase is the hinge right in the middle of the 2 wings. And right at the top in the lookout are a guest bedroom and a study.
How very cool and grey. Oh, wow! Good grief. How exciting. Beam me up, Scotty. Well, actually, no, not really, because this is too good. This is too intriguing, this place.
The first thing you notice is that it's actually quite hard to get a good view of the sea, partly because of the building's hunkered low roof.
I can't even see the horizon. Not even when I bend down. I have to step down from the kitchen into the dining area and then step down again. In a conventional open plan building, this would all be on one level. It would all be open. You'd have no dividing walls. And you'd have large expanses of glass. Here, the windows are low. They kind of demand that you get down. So there's a funny thing going on that these windows only work properly in terms of delivering a view when you sit down. Now, all of them work, that you can see sky in all of them. This is a house for sitting down in.
I call that a treat, really. The design is practical too. The roof's overhang protects many of the windows.
Whereas on this side, the windows deliver a very different kind of relationship with the outdoors. Oh, listen. I mean, not to the roller bearings, but to the sea. See, when people talk about letting the outside in and the inside out, this is what they mean. It's about the full sensory experience of architecture. You can smell the salt, you can feel the breeze, you can hear the waves.
Building your stronghold is one thing, but architect Anthony Hudson had to make sure it also had everything to offer as a family home.
You wouldn't normally build something like this right next to the sea because you'd want to see the sea, but it's just fantastic enclosure protecting you from the devastating westerlies and the gales. It's all about defence, and that's the defence against the rain, or the wind, the weather, and then referring to the history of defence of Jersey.
Yeah, because all along the coast here, it's a continuous line of fortifications,
it's amazing.
With sea walls and Martello towers and gun emplacements, and this sort of takes its place.
Absolutely. You get these wonderful Napoleonic Martello towers and then the German defences. And it's a sort of constant theme which has come into the house very much.
Yeah, with some pretty solid materials. I mean, there's granite, concrete, Corten steel, you know, really robust, defensive.
Yeah, and it's all about that weathering. I mean, you don't want a house which you need to keep on maintaining. So certainly anything which would look ghastly after a few years of gales and wind and stuff being thrown at it was written off right at the beginning.
The rooted robustness and sense of belonging this house has is thanks largely to the way Anthony reused granite taken from the site's original building, a 1920s folly.
There's a lot of granite here, so we've got wonderful granite workers working on the building and just love their trade. I mean, it's one of those things, it takes you back to the days of, I suppose, kind of medieval craftsmen. You just let them do what they do best, not control them.
The head stonemason works locally on the island.
My father passed the trade on to me. He taught me everything that I know now. And that's pretty much how it's gone with everybody in Jersey. You find quite a lot of stonemasons, a lot of their fathers were stonemasons as well. There seems to be a bit of a theme there. So yeah, it's pretty much passed on through the generations, and it's not an easy job.
For this house, the masons were asked to blend 3 different types of Jersey's granite. Over 70% was what's known as Letac grey. Each piece has its own particular shape.
We haven't a plan when we build these things. Everything's built as we pick it up, as we find it, which is also fairly unique. A lot of people build to a pattern.
The masons puzzled their way through almost 90 tons of Jersey stone to build what looks like a modern-day keep.
From here, you really appreciate now the protective way this building is organised around this corner. It all hinges on that central column. Whoa! And there's another story on top, a lookout tower. Oh, what a fantastic medieval cast concrete staircase. Study with a view, of course, that you only get to see properly when you sit down. How brilliant is that? That is, in a way, the money shot.
And sharing this defensive crow's nest is a guest bedroom.
This is like having a sort of Martello tower buried within the walls of the building. And I'm guessing, yes, of course, that you get this fantastic view of the horizon, not from just sitting in a chair, but also from lying in bed.
On stormy days, you can always seek refuge below thanks to a helical masterpiece.
So down the very compelling core 10 steel staircase to what looks like the hinge for the building. The brickwork here is stepped to reflect the angle at which this wing is set to that wing. It's more than 90 degrees. It almost looks as though if you put your back against here, you could kind of, squeeze and the wall would close, just like in a Harry Potter film. But of course, that's not the case, is it really? Sauna.
While this may resemble a Napoleonic Coast Guard station outside, indoors it is full of lovely private family spaces and comfy bolt holes.
Ooh, how lovely and spacious.
This house is powerful, a worthy addition to the German fortifications and Martello towers on this coast. But within the embrace of its walls, it is all glamour. The RIBA judges praised the quality of the design and the architect's sensitive use of materials.
Your idea of the perfect modern home may be that of a white, perfect, crystalline box, minimally furnished and lined with glass partitions, whereas this place has been delivered to an entirely different agenda, and its crusty, dark, protective, fortress-like skin actually belies a different kind of architecture inside it. It may look like some kind of military installation, but it is proper humane architecture.
Autobiography and sensitivity to the site mark out all the 5 rural houses longlisted for the RIBA House of the Year 2016 that we've seen in this programme.
And now it's about time we found out which of these extraordinary new houses has made it onto the shortlist.
The RIBA panel of 5 judges have had to embrace the difficult task of narrowing down the field to decide on 2 shortlisted projects.
Meredith, this is a magnificent plywood model, and I'm guessing it's of one of the shortlisted houses.
This is Outhouse in the Forest of Dean. The architect was Chris Loyne.
Yeah.
Fantastic house, we thought.
What was special about it for you?
I think the main reason why it was lifted to the shortlist is just the strength of its idea. You know, this is a big, bold house. It's a big idea, you know, running the contour road right through the middle of the house, one half buried into the hill with light from above. The other side taking advantage of those views. It's a fantastically strong idea, and yet it's quite a subtle, discreet house. It's almost, I think, like a house as a city. You know, it's got different parts to it. It's got a working area, it's got a street down the middle. I mean, fantastic idea which creates these surprising spaces.
We're on the shortlist. Hooray!
Very nice, very nice.
Wonderful. And I'm mostly thrilled for the people who've designed it and built it. And it's just been a wonderful experience.
So, Chris Loyne's outhouse is the first to make the grade, and the head judge has a second to announce.
So Meredith, tell me about the next house that you shortlisted.
So this one is the wonderfully named Ansty Plum in Wiltshire.
So why did you shortlist it?
Well, I think this is an era which we're beginning to realise there's a lot to treasure. And this is a very intelligent refurbishment and stripping it back, actually, to what the original house and the subsequent studio was all about.
So this is for a sort of imaginative reinterpretation and sort of revitalisation of the old building.
It is, but also in some ways I think it's a celebration of restraint. You know, this is not a big grand project. In fact, it was taking away as much as it was putting in, and it's suggesting that to make a house that is for today, to live in, needn't be much different to a house from 50 or 60 years ago. We don't need lots of grand bathrooms. We don't need much more than the simple house it originally was. So they're taking it back, making it the simple original house and saying that's enough.
That is fantastic.
I think it's fantastic that this house is recognised because obviously we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
And so for this precious little thing that so many people have loved so dearly and worked so hard towards, it's very, very special.
Ansty Plum and Outhouse are the first of our houses to make it onto this year's shortlist. And over the series, we will continue to root out the most inspiring new homes in the country.
Now, you might say that all these expensive boxes and even more expensive locations populated by expensive furniture are irrelevant. We can dream of such perfect states of existence, but actually these buildings have no real bearing on our lives, which is wrong, because every good modern flat, every properly designed, developer-built contemporary home borrows from ideas honed, perfected and polished in houses in this competition. We need exemplars in our world. Without wildly expensive restaurants, for example, there is no Taste the Difference Wiltshire ham. What you see in these houses today influences the design of your home tomorrow. Every year, the Royal Institute of British Architects holds a competition to find Britain's best new house. And after the success of last year's televised event, I'm giddily excited to say that House of the Year is back with even more of these exceptional homes. We'll be taking you behind normally closed doors. Oh, ow! It's too small, that door. To see some of the most original and mind-boggling houses in the running for this competition, all of which have won the hearts and minds of the judges. A large, black, charcoal textured box.
We'll be looking at the long list before we discover the shortlisted homes and then finally the winner of this great architectural prize.
Beam me up, Scotty.
It's very zen. And then, at the end of the series, we'll be finding out here on Channel 4 which one of the homes is the RIBA House of the Year for 2016. These homes are truly remarkable. Each one is an example. We can take inspiration from all of them. So, come inside and have a good nosy around. Throughout this series, I'll be exploring houses that I've grouped into some loose categories to show where new architecture is heading. We'll be seeing houses that are small but exquisitely beautiful.
It's so satisfying, isn't it?
And houses that make the most of a challenging site.
There is a view of a house.
There is a view of a house.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joining me to investigate them are architectural designer Damion Burrows.
There's no protecting modesty, is there?
And architect Zach Monro.
Wow, that's quite unbelievable. What an incredible view.
This episode looks at houses that are architectural testbeds, houses that push the boundaries, inventing solutions for living with flair and creativity.
What we should never underestimate is the degree to which any new idea is a risk. Any new design that's worth its salt has never existed before. Any new house is experimental. It's its own prototype. And when the architect designs a house for him or herself, they redefine themselves as uber-design guinea pigs.
As land becomes less available in our cities, architects are increasingly being challenged to experiment with new ways of reclaiming previously inaccessible sites.
Now, looking at these very, very densely packed streets in South London, I mean, they're typical of any city, of course, you wouldn't think it possible that you could cram in any more housing. But there is always somewhere, usually around the back. So this house is part of a subversive movement in building, where architects find little scraps of land, little garages, unused plots, gardens even to build on. This is backland architecture.
This house made the RIBA House of the Year longlist as an almost military covert operation in architecture. It digs underground to maximize space and camouflages itself with mirrors to reflect back its surroundings. With only 128 square meters of floor space, the aptly named Covert House has an upside-down layout. On top, there's a kitchen, dining and living area which opens out onto the garden. Running around two sides is a light trough which illuminates the basement where all 3 bedrooms have south-facing windows. Behind them, there's a living area and 2 bathrooms.
Hello.
Well,
how are you? How
nice
are you
to
both?
see you.
Yeah. Good to see you both.
Deborah and David, known as DSDHA, are not only the architects, they also live here with their 2 children.
It doesn't do that conventional glamorous thing that everybody wants, which is all a bit too polished.
Yeah, it's not a gallery space, it's earthy.
The idea here is that you actually can feel how the building was crafted, so it's not just one of these kind of CGI experiences.
They bought this period house, which they then sold, keeping its overgrown garden to develop for themselves.
It took us 4 years and an appeal, very slow, rather painful process given the number of 23 neighbours that we've got here.
Yeah.
I think most people are just worried about change. It's actually not only just neighbours who are sensitive here in Clapham, it's a conservation area, it's a sort of historic district.
The permission included strict height and boundary constraints, so there was only one way to go to get a family-sized house.
It's gone down about 5 metres altogether. We had to dig and make an upside-down house. Almost gone back to Georgian trick. They had houses with basements and you go up a few steps to the entrance, and that's to let that extra light come in.
In such a small house, space and storage both have to double up. Every fixture seems to be multifunctional.
So this is practical storage.
Oh, yeah,
but it's
yeah,
also
yeah.
a light, and it's also a window, so you can
get
sunshine coming through.
So it transmits and also glows. It does all of these things.
So the idea is that when the children are downstairs and they want to make their noise and have fun, we can close this door, be very quiet.
Well, I like that sucking noise it makes. This is not catalogue stuff. This is...
No, this is made in Peckham by our fantastic metal workers.
Love it.
As far as possible, everything is sustainable and locally sourced. The wood lining the walls of this bathroom is sycamore felled in the old, overgrown garden. Even marital harmony was taken into account in the design process.
As architects, we always try and minimise the number of materials we use, don't we? So that life comes to the fore, kind of architecture goes to the background. So we minimised it here to just concrete, white and glass.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to reduce arguments, isn't it? If you've made already a set of rules, you know, you can't deviate too far from that with anything.
Come on down.
Very elegant, very elegant. It's like a Georgian staircase, this. It all winds at the last minute. And with a beautiful handrail too. Unlike the average staircase, it's hugely glazed to illuminate down here.
We didn't want it to feel like you were going into a basement. It's more into a lower living space. Yeah. And we designed it as well that when you sit on the sofa, you can see nature from at least 3 angles and sky, so that you're always visually connected with the garden.
You know, all I can see is trees. It's beautiful. One bedroom here, facing onto the little terrace there. 2 kids, 4 of you. Where do you sleep?
Just through here.
Through the wall of storage. Yes.
So away from
This is a large room in here.
And also a working space.
So this goes out underneath the terrace to bring the extra roof light down.
Ah.
There is one thing you just can't get away from in this house: the material it's constructed in, concrete. And with such a difficult site access, it was particularly tricky to build with.
On the day when they were pouring in the height of summer, the first lorry came and they pumped it in all the way from the road. The lorry was delayed. And you can see that, oh dear, the concrete is just about to solidify, and just in time, the next load came, and then the next. You get this landscape of the first pour showing itself, which we love.
It is.
Yeah, and you can trace that around different parts of the house.
Oh, I see it there. It's amazing, to think that you can,
you can actually
read
see
the
that.
actual timeline of the building. Lots of chamfers on the reveals on the inside. What's that about?
We wanted to maximise the amount of light we had down on this lower floor. But also, when you're in the space, we wanted to maximise the view out. So we came to this idea that if we chamfered the edge of the concrete, we'd actually allow more view than if we'd used a traditional square edge.
If this house stops at nothing on the inside to provide the highest quality light, space and delight, then its external skin works just as hard to soften its edges with ambiguous reflections.
It's having that belief that you should be able to build more in cities in Britain.
Okay.
The sort of folly of these huge territories going uninhabited. So I suppose it's audacity to say, we think this should happen.
Ordinarily, when an architect builds their own home, they use it as a test bed for bringing all kinds of disparate ideas together. Whereas actually, this is almost the opposite. This is the distilled summation of a lifetime's work. A shining exemplar, a new prototype for a new kind of backlands architecture. Deborah and David have done all the hard work so that the rest of us don't have to.
The next of our 5 experimental houses is, well, straight out of Wallace and Gromit.
That's going to wake you up in the morning.
So a friend of mine, an architect, says to all his clients, I'm going to make one mistake on this project and you're going to pay for it. Which sounds objectionable, doesn't it? But it isn't, because no building is worth its salt unless it pushes at some kind of boundary and experiments a little. With experimentation, there is, of course, an increased risk of failure, but there is also an increased risk of joy.
Our next house is one of the most surprising in this year's competition, not least because it's been built in the heart of one of the architectural treasures of the UK, the historic centre of Edinburgh. Damion Burrows went to have a look.
Edinburgh's New Town has the largest concentration of Georgian architecture anywhere in Europe, which means it's the last place I'd expect to find a piece of dynamic, contemporary architecture. But that is exactly what I've come to see.
On a plot only 6 metres by 11, the size of a small one-bedroom flat, an astonishing 165 square metres of living space have been conjured over 8 interconnecting levels. In the basement, there's a utility room and the first of 3 bedrooms, with a second bedroom on the ground floor alongside the garage. The study is just above street level at the back. And then on the first floor, there are interlocking levels of living, dining and kitchen areas with a garden terrace alongside. And at the very top is the master bedroom. It took Richard Murphy, the architect and owner, 9 years to realise this dream.
Hello.
Richard, how are you?
Hi, good, good.
Oh, fantastic. It's
That's
very
an effect
warm
straight
feeling
away.
here with all of the timber.
There's a lot of timber. Well, come on up. Usually when I show people, I let them go first, because 1 in 10 people walk straight into this mirror.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is fantastic. It's a great little device, isn't it? It really opens up the space, but it's huge as well. Oh, Richard, this is a great space, but it's quite dark up here.
Well, this is the wintertime mode, and What interests me a lot about domestic architecture is how it can change from winter to summer, because we're, particularly in Scotland, obviously, there is a big difference in daylight. So there's shutters everywhere. If you want to have a go, they just slide.
Oh, fantastic.
And then the big one is here.
Oh, wow. That's a game changer, isn't it, when that opens? All of a sudden, you've gone from that space that was a little bit dark to one of the most open houses I think I've stepped into. And there's more.
All the major windows have insulated shutters that slide or pivot, allowing the glass to generate heat when open, but keeping the house warm and cosy when closed.
Great.
Voila.
That's a really lovely space.
The RIBA judges were most impressed by just how much Richard squeezed into such a small plot. 3 bedrooms, bathrooms, an office, garage, utility, and even a delightful outdoor terrace. All that, as well as the shutters, sliding doors, and glazing, makes for a house that's extremely complex.
There must have been easier ways to do this. Why did you go to so much trouble?
Curtains, which I've never liked anyway, are not really very solid, and you want to have a real cocoon in the wintertime, and that's what's achieved by all these mechanisms of things moving. And also, it's a piece of fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside, the tiny courtyard is a tribute to Richard's hero, Italian architect Carlo Scarpa, who designed this garden in Venice. Richard has reproduced a miniature version on his little terrace here in Edinburgh.
I virtually live there in the summer. I love it. And it makes all the difference to the house.
Over the years, Richard has had the opportunity to develop his ideas on previous small-scale projects. But it's clear that in this quirky project, he's pulled out all the stops.
Has this been the opportunity to bring all of that experimentation together?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you do experiment on yourself, a bit like a sort of scientist of the 19th century, I suppose. There are some things you would do for yourself which you wouldn't dare do for a client, you know, just in case they went wrong, I suppose.
But here, at the heart of his home, is an idea that would work in any open-plan design.
If you have a sort of typical living room, dining room, kitchen, the problem is if you've got people for dinner or something, you end up looking at the sort of detritus of the chaos of cooking, certainly in my case. I will show you what I mean by going up to the kitchen. You stay where you are. This is quite a nice sort of commander position here, I think, actually.
But you're absolutely right. I can't see what your hands are doing at all.
No.
Or the mess.
Even the bookcase forms a carefully designed piece in this complex puzzle box of a house.
And this links to the openings in the stonework on the outside, on the corner of the building?
Yeah.
The exterior, with those clever little gaps to allow light through the bookcase, is clad in ashlar stone, a clear reference to the Georgian buildings alongside. The dramatic stepped roof, like an armadillo's back, was designed to respect the neighbouring flat's right to light, but it's also perfectly orientated for 8 solar panels. The house has excellent green credentials, with a ground source heat pump and rock heat store, electronic ventilation and rainwater harvesting systems. Right at the top of the house is the master bedroom, home to all kinds of gizmos.
What happens is when I wake up in the morning, this is what happens. So
that's going to wake you up in the morning, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit noisy, but I quite often lie in bed with the thing open and look at the stars. But there's also lots of other eccentric parts to this particular room.
More?
Oh, yes, there's more, there's more. I wanted a disappearing corner, but I didn't want a window here. I thought it'd be quite fun to have a piece of wall which opens up, and then this one pivots like that.
Comes all the way around.
Through 90 degrees.
So the whole corner of the entire house just moves away.
Yep.
It's decadent and it's luxurious, but it feels fantastic. It's great having a little bench here to be able to sit and enjoy it.
The bench is not a bench, because what is also on display here is a bath. So you can fall out of bed on a Saturday morning into the bath.
Into the bath.
Have an alfresco bath.
May I step in?
If you wish to, yes.
There's no protecting modesty, is there, when you?
Well, yeah, I've learned the
in
lesson.
bath
You
here?
need to close the shutters first.
You do.
Before you get out of the bath.
But when you are down here, you can just see the tops of the chimneys and the roofs. It's very calming.
Yeah, exactly.
This house has been a 9-year odyssey, a quest to raise finance and then gain planning permission. It started when Richard was approached to design a yoga studio on this overgrown plot. Instead, he bought it himself, realising that the ugly, unfinished wall at the end of the neighbouring terrace was never meant to be exposed. There was an opportunity to properly bookend the street with something highly personal. But back in July 2012, when work on the house started, it didn't go down at all well with the neighbours.
People were horrified. It was described as everything from public toilets to garage. But then as it started to evolve, people started to see where the benefits were in rescuing what was a disused plot and making something beautiful on it.
And their new neighbour is about as gregarious as they come.
Every time you go out, Richard is there sort of saying, you know, come and join me in the house. It's just always full of people. It really, really is an open door, which is lovely because it's like he's sharing his house with the community.
Around every corner and up every stair, there is a new surprise in this beautiful, complex treasure chest of a house.
I wrote a piece that this house was a quarter scarpa, a quarter sown, a quarter energy house, and referring to all the crazy moving shutters and slightly mad mechanical devices, a quarter Wallace and Gromit.
This learned hybrid house is an ingenious and playful nest constructed in the heart of Edinburgh by a wise old owl.
What makes this house so special is the way in which it borrows from its historical context, whilst unashamedly remaining modern. It conjures up light and space from its small site, and it does it with an absolute sense of fun and adventure.
So we've seen 2 extremely inspiring experimental houses. There are 3 more to go in this programme before we find out which ones have made it to the shortlist.
Coming up, an extension with a Japanese personality.
The bath drains straight onto the floor.
And a modern house in a traditional Cumbrian town.
Look at this. It's all about the view, isn't it?
Buildings are not mass-produced objects like spoons. I mean, spoons are the same forever, whereas buildings adapt over time with the people who commission and use them, with their context too. The next contender is a beautiful example of a home that has been adapted, stepping into the future while also embracing the past.
Extensions. What stays, what goes? Do you keep the old, or do you begin again entirely from scratch? Or maybe there are ways architects can experiment to allow the old and the new to coexist, producing something far more memorable. So what have they done to this small detached house on the end of a terrace in South London? It's clear the front has been given a careful facelift, but the main entrance seems to be round the back.
Oh, wow! It's like a building with 2 facades. That's very different.
Here, a family of 4 on a tight budget wanted to extend their 2 up, 2 down by adding a 3rd bedroom upstairs and a more open-plan layout downstairs. But instead of tearing down the old lean-to on the back, it's been creatively embedded within the new facade, keeping a trace of the building's history within its very fabric. The extension includes an enlarged kitchen, a dining area, a downstairs bathroom, and upstairs a master bedroom. A central void drops down between the old and the new halves of the house to allow light into the heart of the building.
Hello. Hi, pleased to meet you.
Nice to see you.
The family employed architect Taro Tsuruta.
This is a shoes off
Yes,
Japanese house.
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Are the owners Japanese?
Yes.
They are?
Yes, my friends.
Called the House of Trace, the RIBA judges really liked the inventive and exciting way this place melds the traditional British terrace with modern Japanese thought. Wherever the old and new meet, the join has been emphasised rather than hidden, not just on the facade, but also within in the central light well. Even repaired structural faults like this crack are celebrated.
Trace of crack, trace of building, hence the trace house.
And then house had memory, which is we keep in this extension. So this house is called House of Trace. So we kind of like celebrating rather than sort of hidden. This is bathroom.
Downstairs bathroom.
The bathroom, too, is unusually kitted out.
Am I imagining? No. The bath drains straight onto the floor.
Yes, this is an open joint drainage. So we have a tanking blade underneath.
Okay.
And then there is a drainage gutter.
This lovely elephant tap on the bath that drains straight onto the floor was designed by Taro out of utilitarian copper piping.
Actually, copper is ages and then patinates. So you can see the passage of time. My client want to recognize, time is passes as is. So this is part of this memory idea.
Okay.
Everywhere I look, Taro has made clever use of low-cost, easily available materials.
Rather than an expensive stone floor, you just laid concrete garden tiles down.
£2.50 per each.
The idea of keeping a note of the building's history extends to every fixture. Even the part numbers used in the building process are on view.
We kept the other trace number.
Trace of the process that made it, which is nice.
Yeah, and also this was necessary for builder to recognize which piece which goes.
Of course, yeah.
And I use all Eastern European. They didn't speak English, so it was necessary,
All the furniture, including the kitchen cabinets, has been designed and cut in plywood by Taro in a process known as CNC routing. CNC standing for computer numerically controlled. CNC is normally associated with cheap, mass-produced furniture, but here it's been used to make bespoke items for a really very crafted home. Taro designs his tailored furniture on his computer and just emails the flat-pack layouts to the factory. They then program the CNC machine to cut the pieces. The accuracy is extraordinary, to within 0.1 of a millimetre, and Taro can expect delivery within a week of sending in his designs. So it's quick and it's cheap, yet still beautiful and bespoke.
Taro's really embraced the software to make very elaborate structures from CNC. So, yeah, pretty advanced kits that he's making.
In House of Trace, even the staircase has been made using CNC processes, and since he can, Taro's included little cartoon manga characters.
Oh, just that one? Yeah.
Another one.
Another manga character up here.
But there are also great architectural moments in this building. The central light well, for example, which offers sightlines through the house and brings light to the central kitchen. And everywhere, there are these reminders of the house's history.
So I can understand why your clients here would be interested in memory, but do they matter to you, these ideas?
Yes, my mother became Alzheimer, and actually memory can be lost.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that actually, if we build entirely new and we erase constantly, we're sort of creating a collective urban Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
In the bedroom, in the extension, there are more surprises.
The ceiling's joyful because it suggests we're in a sort of South London industrial extension, a kind of 19th century workshop.
Even the bed has been given Taro's special treatment.
What are you doing?
Just this bed, actually, bit of more function. Oops. This is a double bed.
Yeah.
And we have a spacer. This is a queen bed spacer. So we take this off.
So you can expand the size of the bed. Oh, should I take this one out, yeah? Yeah. Oh, it says on it double. It's a double spacer.
So when you're going out with somebody, start with the double bed, your partner get pregnant, queen's bed. And then for the emergency, your partner left you.
Or you go back to single. Yeah. A single bed and a sad bench.
Well, it's a bookshelf.
Bookshelf!
The traces of the construction process, whether in CNC'd plywood or in wonky brickwork, that are embedded throughout the house are persistent reminders of the importance of making and how through making we make sense of our world.
This building is not an exercise in the minimal. It doesn't seek to be an exemplar of perfection, but don't be seduced by the idea of the ultra-rational, because actually, as creatures, that's the last thing we are. We are creatures motivated by memory, and nostalgia, and the imagination. Things which great buildings like this can provide in spades.
House of Trace celebrates the memory of place and how we populate and use it. And our next house tackles a similar conundrum. How do you build a large contemporary 4-bedroom house in the heart of a conservation area, take in the best of the views and not upset the neighbours? Zach Monro went to see how it's been done.
I'm wondering where this house is because it isn't obvious. But I think I found it and it's not at all what I was expecting.
This seems less like a house and more like a collection of metal sheds placed almost haphazardly among some ancient town walls. This carefully embedded house is made up of 2 parts. The main living room upstairs opens out onto a large terrace, while below are 2 of the bedrooms. The second part contains the kitchen diner upstairs with 2 more bedrooms, a workshop and the garage.
Hiya.
Good morning, Zach.
Sue.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sue and David commissioned this as a home to retire to.
It is quite unusual.
Yeah, it's not what you would expect at all in a small market town in Cumbria.
No.
Unlike the more traditional architecture here, this home has large, carefully composed picture windows, bringing light deep into every room. It has a generous glazed atrium at its heart and plenty of open outdoor and indoor spaces. The RIBA judges were able to admire a design that did its utmost to get on with the neighbours.
Hiya.
David.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you for welcoming me to your home.
Pleasure.
Look at this. It's all about the view, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah.
Yeah, the view's pretty special.
It's interesting, though, because it's a traditional Cumbrian town. We're in a conservation area. Yet you chose to come here knowing that you wanted to do something like this.
Yeah.
And there's something unusual there, isn't there?
David and Sue lived in a traditional English country house for many years, but they were seduced by the expat lifestyle while based in Abu Dhabi.
We lived in a very modern, bright, airy house with lots of glass and very high ceilings, and it was such a contrast to our old mill house. And we found, to our surprise really, that we just loved living in a modern house with all the clean lines.
This sort of open, airy architecture is not thick on the ground around here, so David and Sue found this site with existing and very unpopular planning permission in place. They were determined to build something better and rather more modern, which of course could bring with it a new set of local objections.
I was certainly aware that it was a very different sort of house, and I didn't want that to be a problem with regards to us fitting in with the community.
In choosing an architect, David remembered someone he'd shared an office with back in the 1980s.
It was a residential property that I'd seen on the walls of their practice that never actually got built. That gave me the idea of picking up the phone to him. Our knowledge of the work and experience that he'd got, not necessarily residential, I thought that was an advantage because he was going to then be able to bring a fresh approach.
Rab Bennett's practice designs large-scale projects. This, their first private house, was a test to create a spacious home that wouldn't overpower the site. Rab knew he had to get the community on board.
The consultation process is two-way.
And you have to go prepared to listen and, if necessary, adjust the scheme. They were relieved to find that their views were not blocked and that the site was enhanced rather than the opposite. I've always thought if you could start on the basis of using old materials in a modern way, it's got a chance of bedding in with its surroundings, and it could still look like our contemporary building of the 21st century without compromise. I think we've done that.
One of David and Sue's neighbours seems to be enjoying her new view.
When I look through either the hall window or the bathroom window, you can see very nice gardens, and it's a real pleasure. Now it's very neat and tidy, and I'm afraid I like tidy things. So it's very good, I think, especially having the stone.
Getting new architecture to fit a conservation area is not easy. It takes discipline and creativity, imagination paired with a love for traditional materials and techniques, which extends here right inside.
My dad was a joiner, and then I carried that forward into my own lifestyle now, which is making classical guitars. So again, I'm working with wood.
David's delight in fine craftsmanship is evident in every detail of their new home.
We could have had normal doors here, but it just wouldn't have given the quality feel that these doors lost into the panels achieve. Putting the pivots in the right position such that the doors not only meet in the middle, but also provide continuity of the panel in the right line. And if you open it up again and watch this corner up here, that follows the same line as this line here. It's a very easy place in which to live. Very easy. And that's probably a real success of the architect.
I'm sure he's very proud, because that's exactly why you do things. Why you bother designing every detail, why this joinery is so important, is everything makes it better. What strikes you about this building is that it's born from an immense amount of consideration for the landscape, for the local architecture, and for the local people. And that brings a modesty to it. And it's a modesty that kind of belies its significance as a new building that belongs here and that is actually a home.
Just one more house to go before we find out which of them has made it onto the shortlist. And the next contender is a showcase for both beauty and sustainability. Our final experimental house takes us to a town in the heart of the Chiltern Hills, Amersham. 30 miles northwest of London, Amersham was outraged in 1931 by one of the first British modernist houses, high and over, built here in the heart of Metroland. The conservationist and poet Sir John Betjeman, no less, described it as scandalising all Buckinghamshire. Now, another new house is making waves. This place has impeccable green credentials. Not that it wears any of them on its sleeve. And this house is no white modernist wonder. It's more rooted in the traditions of arts and crafts suburbs, beautifully built from flint, cedar, Corten steel and zinc. There are 3 bedrooms in this 2-storey home, tucked beneath a long, eccentrically pitched roof which turns its face to the southern sky for solar gain. The ground floor is open plan, combining the kitchen, dining room and living room into one space. A study sits next to the entrance. On the first floor are 3 bedrooms and bathroom with a south-facing double-height light well over the living area. Outside is a garden studio and in between a courtyard sun trap. The architect, Heinz Richardson, built this house for himself and his family near where he grew up. Heinz, hello.
Hello. Welcome. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Much the better for being here, thank you.
Wow, it's a kind of, it plays a bit of a game, this building, because outside it's quite suburban. And you come in and this is kind of like, it's almost like a gallery. It gets a long view out to the wildflower meadow. It's neat.
This is wonderful because the meadow is a bit like an impressionist painting, but we wanted something that was much wilder, much more organic, and somewhere for our bees.
As well as the bees, this house is a quiet country retreat for Heinz, his wife, and occasionally their 2 grown-up children. The RIBA jury loved this house for its clever use of simple, sustainable design principles, the inspiring series of spaces, and the superb management of light.
Along here, you've got glass, nets, overhang, sliding screens, lots of ways of controlling the light into the building.
The whole of that glass facade, it's a connection between inside and outside in the garden, but it's also something that can give you openness or privacy.
And it's no accident that the largest windows face south.
So the sun in the winter will come into this space and warm it.
Yeah.
But because of the overhang of the roof in summer, it cuts out the sun, so we're excluding heat gain.
And if it does get too hot, there's a series of vents above the living room that can let the heat out. And there's more. This house is packed with green tech. A preheating ground air duct, rainwater harvesting, and automatic ventilation. But then Heinz has been a pioneer in sustainable design.
In 2000, we built a house for the future.
The project attempted to imagine the standard of housing in the year 2050. It was fitted with pioneering sustainable technology. But this home is just as eco.
The whole sustainable agenda, it's now much more commonplace. You can actually embed it in a house from first principles, to use the sun, to use the orientation, to use the way that the building is constructed, to make your house more sustainable.
I'm not surprised to hear that Heinz spent years studying the site before he started work.
We lived in the house that was on here when we bought the site for a couple of years. So I got to know how the light moved around and, where the views were. I stood on the roof of the other house and worked out what that I could see.
Good architecture requires a lot of research and reflection. Every corner of this place, every shaft of light and view seems mature and considered.
So all these different views, almost 360-degree views.
I love this little cheated balconette.
Yeah, it's a little inset balcony. It just allows you to step out and, enjoy the view and the fresh air.
And you get the garden.
At the cricket pitch next door, friends and neighbours seem to rather like one particular addition.
Absolutely wonderful to have built a clock on the house, yeah. When we need to get on with the game a little bit quicker, and it's really good to have the clock there, yeah.
Heinz's house is parsimonious with the Earth's resources, but generous to its neighbours. Like so many houses designed by mature architects, it also reflects a lifetime's work and interests. And it reinvigorates the idea of life in Metroland.
You can think of a building as representative of a set of ideas, a load of different materials, a bunch of responses and approaches. And here, actually, also, a whole group of personal philosophies and beliefs. But they are just lists, of course. What makes a building work is how all of those come together and how they're organised. And how, as this place is, how they are beautifully stitched together. That's what makes a building better than the sum of its parts.
We've now seen all 5 experimental homes on the long list, all potential winners of the 2016 RIBA House of the Year award. South London has gained some undercover architecture in the carefully concealed Covert house. A Cumbrian market town has been politely introduced to 21st century architecture, carefully stitched into the place with stonework. In Amersham, Metroland has been gently stirred by a low-impact version of the suburban home. An ingenious Wallace and Gromit box of tricks has landed in the heart of Edinburgh's new town. And southeast London has kept a clever note of its past in the very fabric of House of Trace.
So now we approach the great moment where we discover which of these extraordinary new houses has made it onto the shortlist.
I'm meeting with jury member Charlotte Skeen-Catling to find out which of these experimental houses has gone through.
So tell me about this first house that you shortlisted.
This is the Covert House by Deborah Sant and David Hills. And this was a very interesting one for us because they've managed to create something that when you first arrive appears as a very tiny jewel-like object sitting within the middle of the site. Then it unfolds as you enter it. And then you've got a treatment of the external surfaces so that it sort of disappears.
Yeah.
And
It's a shrinking violet.
But it's not.
A lot of
It's
space,
very
a lot of volume.
tough. It's very robust, and it's very rigorous.
Wow, that's amazing.
Hey, that's really good news.
I didn't even know it was being drawn down to a shortlist so soon.
So Charlotte, tell me what the second project is you've shortlisted.
This is the Murphy House in Edinburgh. It responds to its context in an incredibly complex way.
Quite a tough site because it was, you know, at the end of one terrace but perpendicular to another.
Yeah.
It was overlooked a lot.
Absolutely.
And had to address the street as well and add somehow to the character of the new town.
Yeah, and it really does that.
This isn't a large building. I mean, he's squeezed 3 bedrooms onto a really small site.
Each time we opened another door, we couldn't believe, you know, a garage, another bedroom, a third bedroom, terraces.
Yep.
It's an extraordinary thing. And we did wonder about the bedroom at the top. Reveals him sitting in his bathtub. I don't know what his neighbours.
Yeah,
it's the architect exposed.
It's cleaned me out of money, but who cares? It's money well spent. And no, I'm enjoying living here, so that's just the icing on the cake, really, so that's great.
Covert House and Murphy House. 2 fascinating, complex homes that join Outhouse and Ansty Plum on the House of the Year shortlist. Over the series, we'll continue exploring the remaining houses in the competition before discovering who is the winner of this award.
So, why hire an architect anyway? When you buy a car, you get excited, of course, by its acceleration, by whether it has leather seats and go-faster metallic paint. You don't worry about whether it's going to get you from A to B or whether the doors will fall off. The same applies when you're looking at a new house. Employ the right architect, and you get a super-engineered, sleek, jaw-dropping, timeless slice of beauty, whatever your budget. Every year, the Royal Institute of British Architects holds a competition to find Britain's best new house. And after the success of last year's televised event, I'm giddily excited to say that House of the Year is back with even more of these exceptional homes.
We'll be taking you behind normally closed doors.
Oh, ow! Too small, that door.
To see some of the most original and mind-boggling homes which have won the hearts and minds of the judges.
A large, black, charcoal textured box.
We've been touring the country, looking at the long list of houses in the running for House of the Year.
Beam me up, Scotty.
So far, we've revealed 4 houses on the shortlist.
Very elegant, very elegant. It's like a Georgian staircase, this.
Today, we're looking at houses that prove that small is beautiful.
What a charming, light space up in the east.
Thank you.
And discovering which of them have been shortlisted.
And then, at the end of the series, we'll be finding out, here on Channel 4, which one of the homes is the RIBA House of the Year for 2016. These homes are truly remarkable. Each one is an example. We can take inspiration from all of them. So, come inside and have a good nosy around.
So far in our romp through the competition, we've seen houses built in the open landscape.
How brilliant is that? That is, in a way, the money shot.
And houses that are deeply experimental.
Am I imagining? No. The bath drains straight onto the floor.
Yes.
The houses we're visiting in this episode aren't big, but they are clever. The works of good architects with all kinds of tricks up their sleeves to work wonders on a small space.
So there's a misconception we need to clear up here. It's that space does not equal size, okay? So, for example, you could build a mansion with 18 bathrooms, which is ridiculous, I know, and still not have enough storage. Or you could take a lesson from the greats of architecture and you could build a really tiny house with lots of clever ideas in it, say, hidden cupboards, false perspectives, high ceilings, views out that capture a little bit of sky, a view to infinity. And in doing that, you almost defy the laws of physics. You become a conjurer of space.
We start in East London. Somewhere behind these Victorian streets is the Garden House.
So, where is it? Yeah, architecture may be the great public art, but it sometimes hides itself under a bushel.
This is a two-storey home, stealthily cloaked from its neighbours by an extraordinary space-age green roof.
Oh, this is beautiful. It's like a little garden room.
Built for living and working, the ground floor has a bedroom, bathroom with a large open-plan living room and kitchen. The addition of a second floor provides a valuable separate workspace, all neatly veiled beneath a pyramidal planted roof on a pocket handkerchief of a site.
Ooh.
It's home to Paddy and Keir.
Hello.
Kevin.
Paddy.
Paddy, pleased to meet you. And Keir, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Great. Quite tricky finding it.
Yes,
It doesn't announce itself to the street, this building.
No, tucked away a little, but at the bottoms of everyone's gardens.
Formerly a cramped ground floor live workspace, Paddy and Keir developed their business here for 20 years, designing leather costumes for fashion designers and movies.
What was the building you were in like before then?
It was barely 700 square feet, everything, your whole life.
It was a studio flat?
Yeah.
So what we're standing in now then, is that a remodelling of the existing building or a
complete demolition, total demolition, and gone down and up.
Wow.
Because the intention is for us to show our work in here. We only wanted small things that we can take down so we can show a piece on that wall, a piece there, you know, and have a few people around to see what you've made, sort of thing. We always knew that we were going to go up another story, and that's where the whole conversation about the roof came up.
Going up a story in a conservation area on a tight plot overlooked by over a dozen neighbours was going to be a tough sell to the planners. But the architects came up with a delightful solution.
The idea of the garden roof, I mean, A, it was a response to planning and trying to ameliorate the kind of the look of the new building from the surrounding streets. But also it gave Paddy and Keir somewhere to actually garden. And this idea that, you could go to the roof and actually garden your garden, that we thought was a really sweet idea.
Adding this gorgeous roof gave them a total of 30 extra square metres inside, so there's a new studio and a living area below, now completely free of work clutter.
We have lived and worked together for nearly 30 years in a very small space.
And now you have that separation of the two. Does it change life? Has it changed the dynamic between you? Do you see less of each other as a result?
Well, at least there's somewhere to go when you've had a Barney.
Yeah, if you need a bit of a break from each other, there's some proper escape now.
Is that a bathroom in there?
Yeah, through the... We'll have a...
Okay, now have a look. Oh, that's very stylish.
As designers, it's no surprise that Paddy and Keir have been fastidious in the detail, choosing simple, clean fittings, a limited colour palette and beautiful materials. Stone floors inside and out, and oak cabinetry. The RIBA admired the fine detailing of this peaceful and private home, and how the architects have used every conceivable trick to make a small space work hard.
Everything is kind of sort of pared back, isn't it, in the building, to as kind of thin as possible. You have a minimal steel staircase and a minimal steel shelf. The section which is so narrow to take up the least amount of space.
Yeah. And of course, the shelf incorporates a screen for the projector back there.
But so the television isn't enough. This is for big. This is big time.
Big picture, big sound.
Yeah.
We have friends round very regularly for film shows. It's like something that we like to do. So
that just stopped.
Yeah. It's quite tight.
Perfectly. 30 millimetres above the table.
Yeah.
So now, what I want to know is where the bedroom starts and where the kitchen stops. So this is a kitchen. This is a. Oh no, that's outside. There's a coats.
That's the cloakroom. Yeah.
Oh, this is the door.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice because it's taken up in the depth of the cupboard.
Yeah.
So, back of kitchen cupboards.
Yeah.
But these are wardrobes. But it's all integrated into one beautiful timber-lined.
Yeah, a bit of joinery.
Room, and a skylight, which drafts this beautiful kind of soft light down.
I was very keen to wake up with good light, and obviously I wake up and what I see is all this mirror and the getting.
Oh, blimey! So
you're getting sort of projection on the wall there.
Reflection on reflection on reflection on reflection, then finally down onto the wall.
I bet you've never seen a house that plays as many tricks with mirrors. Nor, I bet, do you have a staircase as paper thin as this. It's a space maker.
This is a staircase that almost isn't here. I mean, it's made out of 5mm steel, folded, and it turns into a shelf.
Yes, and it runs in on one edge, which makes an interesting shape.
Force 5 Engineering in Faversham were specially commissioned to build it.
The design of the staircase and the material used gives it a simple but effective look. The challenge is for finishing on it. That's the difficult part, you know. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into making these finished products. The main processes are welding. Once it's welded, it's then going to be cleaned, which is a grinding process, and it needs to be seamless so that Paddy and Keir get that visual effect that they were after.
The architects have played with angles and perspectives to fit the studio into the roof space.
This is even more exquisitely tidy than downstairs. Upstairs, the building takes off. The shapes it makes with the lining on the walls.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, the false perspective.
Yeah, it's really fabulous.
Yeah, my dear Uncle Roger, who was a set designer for Doctor Who back in the day, came up and just went, "What are you doing? It's false perspective. It's all smoke and mirrors what you're doing." You know, got quite sort of.
I'll remember this as the Doctor Who building. Even the door is got a false perspective. So it fits. Is that right? It fits the hole here.
Yeah, so that's the leaf door, which.
I'm sorry. I just want to do this slowly because it must be. It's so satisfying, isn't it?
But I think the real stroke of genius was putting the prefabricated roof glass element on top of the building and then carrying the panelling on up into the space, which was very, very clever.
I find it quite difficult to believe that you do really difficult, messy work up here. It's an extremely tidy space.
Yes, I think that's an absolutely fair comment, and it's. I guess there's a studio for poncing about.
That's what it is. After years of living in a squalid mess, you now have the opportunity to ponce about a bit. Can we get onto the roof here?
Yes.
Is that what that door's for?
Over that way.
Oh, my Lord. It's bloody brilliant.
Thank you.
By sheer dint of scale, it's bloody brilliant. It's small things repeated again and again and again and again in trays. It's great.
This pioneering roof is a series of specially commissioned stainless steel troughs, more a rainbow of colour than a green roof. Keir has put in over 800 plants.
At its heart, it's quite experimental. I'll be fascinated to see what it looks like in 10 years' time. I can't even... part of me dreads to think.
I know it got you your planning permission.
Yeah.
But what you've done here is actually made a very generous gift of something to everybody here. And that's, you know, buildings don't usually do that.
It makes me think of California. I look out on it and I feel like it's just for me, you know?
The entire house is an imaginative and efficient piece of architecture.
I don't quite understand this. This steel shelf runs all the way down the building. It gets fatter, then thinner. And it's got a vertical rib, which is running from this corner all the way through to here, giving you a shelf in the sitting room and a shelf in the kitchen. It's very practical.
As well as practicality and detailing, the RIBA praised the imaginative bespoke hanging garden roof.
I don't know if you sew, mend clothes or make your own clothes, but if you do, you'll appreciate the value of a really good sewing box with little drawers for everything. All the things you need, which is sort of what this place is. These guys have commissioned the most glorious, traditional little wooden box, and to top it all, it is crowned off with this fabulous collection of jewels from the natural world. A fantastic pincushion.
Coming up, a family home squeezed into a Muse.
It's not very high, and it's not very wide, but it feels huge.
Where would we be without glass? Well, no, our homes would be dark. Most of our city buildings would, of course, be naked and small. Otherwise, brilliantly laid out houses would feel poky and miserable. Glass offers salvation to the builder of the small house. It can suggest space, even infinity beyond the confines of the building. It, of course, brings in light. It even can suggest ambiguity. A wall can half disappear, even a floor.
Architect Zach Monro went to meet Dan and Ruth, who've completely transformed their London Muse house.
Hiya, Ruth.
Hello, Zach.
Hey.
Very nice to meet you.
Love to meet you. What a spot, eh?
This is our son, Edward.
Hello. Can I go in?
Please do.
Thank you.
This 4-storey home sits on a tiny site, just 3 metres wide and 8 metres deep, but ekes out 112 square metres of living space. In the basement, there's an open-plan living room. A kitchen diner spans the ground floor. Above is a master bedroom and bathroom with 2 smaller bedrooms and a shower room at the top. All the floors are linked by one continuous sculptural staircase that runs through the middle of the house.
Absolutely incredible. What a house. This is just beautiful, really unexpected and stunning. What's the story here?
This is part of the story here.
That's right. So the original layout of the house was very different. Our master bedroom was downstairs in the basement area with a bathroom, and there were 2 bedrooms on the top floor of the house, and we had a very small spiral staircase right at the back corner. So the configuration is perfect for a couple, but when we were thinking about hopefully having a family, as it was at that time, we knew that the configuration of the house was going to have to change, and it was going to need some quite serious overhaul for us to be able to do that.
The solution to drawing light into the building was architect Phil Coffey's beautiful central staircase.
So the location of the staircase is critical.
in a Muse house. If you place the staircase at the back of the house, you only have one space per floor, which reduces the amount of spaces the client has to use. If you put the staircase to the side, you reduce the width, and the width is critical in a Muse house. So by placing the staircase down the middle, we get light in from the top. The screens either side allow light either side to the floor plates, and when you get to the bottom, the basement is bathed in light.
But a staircase alone doesn't illuminate an entire basement. A huge skylight channeling light through 3 glass floors completes the job.
In the original plans, the glass between the floors was translucent and had a non-slip finish. But in fact, we were so enamoured of how you could see and speak and communicate and wave through the glass that we decided to keep it as it was.
What about dresses? I mean, do people just sort of...
Yeah, we're not going to have a Marilyn Monroe-themed party here.
In the kitchen and dining room, the challenge was to fit in all the appliances in a space no bigger than a garage.
I mean, it's not a huge kitchen by any stretch of the imagination, but it feels quite big. This feels quite comfortable.
We didn't want her to feel too hemmed in. So the first thing was losing cabinets, high cabinets.
Yeah.
So everything is either along the back wall and below waist height on the side. This is the the cavernous.
Plenty of space in here.
It is gigantic. And the lighting, I remember, lighting is critical, always critical, especially in a little space like this. And the fact that it's all done with these little LED strips that drop onto this kind of brick wall.
These bricks are just slips, the thin face of the brick taking up less width in the room.
I'll have a look down here.
Downstairs in the basement, there is more space-defying trickery.
Oh, it even smells special. Wow. I mean, again, this is just sort of a stroke of genius. It's not very high, and it's not very wide, but it feels huge.
Well, we managed to keep the width by not having anything cutting across the space. So this fireplace in particular is quite cool because it sits underneath the stairs and becomes the stairs.
These materials, this concrete feels really appropriate.
Yeah, you've got the earth and the sky, and you transition through the house and the materials get slightly lighter as you go through from concrete to wood and eventually to glass on the top of the house.
And it's just an exquisite bit of design. You can't really underestimate the effect of a skylight, getting top light into a kind of basement area. And it's actually kind of rather nice to get a little kind of slither of mirror to start to get yet another view up to the upper floors.
Warning, moving up through the house can induce vertigo for the uninitiated.
Ooh. Oh, wow. It's rather nice. This is the master bedroom.
Yes, that's right.
It's great. I noticed that there's not a single kind of, let's say, normal opening door in the house. It's all these kind of guys.
No, that's right. And this is the sort of Japanese feel of it.
We went on our honeymoon in 2010 to Japan in cherry blossom season, and we love the Japanese aesthetic, and we've tried to recreate some of that here.
Hidden storage inside the bed absorbs the clutter of the room. And Japanese ideas abound. There is translucent washi paper in the sliding doors, which move to reveal long, clear views.
It is quite surprising to see this much of an opening, but having something this wide means that it's not a room, it's a floor. It's a whole floor of stuff rather than a series of rooms.
The bathroom is the obvious place where mirrors and glass come into their own, reflecting the white brick walls and suggesting yet more space.
Oh, this is great. Ooh, another bit of top floor magic. So this is Teddy's room, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a small room, but there's not the sign of a spotlight or a knob. All you've got is, is these panels of oak.
This modern Muse is on the RIBA long list because it reinvents space. It's a clear, single idea executed with precision and romance.
In the name of allowing this family to stay here, the architect's taken every single centimetre and got the absolute maximum out of it. It's a kind of maximalism. I mean, this top light that falls through the staircase right down to the heart of the building. He's made it look effortless.
Past winners have shown that even the smallest space can provide a home. Gap House in West London won in 2009. At the front, it's only 2.4 metres wide, filling what was once a slender alleyway between two houses.
Just when you think there aren't any little gaps left or any leftover bits of land, they're always there in the city, you just have to find them.
But by repeatedly opening the house towards the back garden, Luke produced a 4-bedroom home with generous living spaces filled with natural light.
Each floor, as you go up the house, gets shorter and narrower. And organising the house with the living accommodation at the ground, you're spending most of your time in the biggest space, and therefore the house feels generous. And it's only when you're going up to bed and going to the loo, you're using the smaller spaces. The surprise to me about the house, living in it rather than designing it, was how quiet and how secluded it was through having a very small frontage and then sort of large open plan courtyard at the back. Essentially, it's very cut off from the rest of the neighbourhood, so there's this quiet haven in a relatively sort of central bit of city.
So we've seen 2 beautiful small projects that wrangle space from nowhere. We've got 3 more to go before we discover which of them has made it to the shortlist.
The barren beauty of this stretch of the southeast Kent coastline has been attracting artists and architects for decades.
There is an alternative, sort of experimental quality to life here in Dungeness. So not surprisingly, architects leap at the opportunity to build something here. The new kid on the block is a house called North Vat. Actually, this is the North Vat. There are 2 of them. There's one at the south, one at the north. They're both listed, and they were used for boiling up the nets of the fishermen in tannin to protect them. Of course, now it's not used because fishing is in decline here. But the legacy of that industry persists in the architecture of this place, an architecture of sheds.
Sheds are the world's basic, most adaptable dwellings. If you want more space, just add more sheds. The main shed here is a large open-plan living dining area with a kitchen. Above hangs a mezzanine with a double bedroom and shower room. A seemingly invisible glass link leads to 2 separate baby sheds for use as extra bedrooms or for just admiring the view.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, very nice to meet you.
Pauline's all right, yeah?
It is, and David.
This sleek, angular silhouette of a home belongs to Pauline and David, a retired couple from London.
I love this approach, that this access, this view through to the sea is fantastic because it sets the stage, doesn't it?
Well, we just see it as soon as we arrive.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel you're home.
There are no new plots in Dungeness, so Pauline and David had to replace an existing home. The planners insisted that the new house didn't take up any more space than the previous one, and that the new building reflected the style of the original fishermen's huts.
The main act is this way, yeah?
Yes, why not come in?
So this is sort of the front door we're going through. It's interesting this because on the outside the building looks to be smaller. You wouldn't think you'd get all of this space into that dark volume, and yet it's remarkably spacious inside, isn't it?
The room is light and airy, helped by a raised ceiling on either side of the mezzanine, which formed part of Pauline's basic brief.
I just started with a room, and it was the ability, well, what do we need? We live in one room. We should have one room with a shelf above it for the bed. So That's where it started.
I like that definition. A room with a shelf above it for the bed. This is one of those buildings that I imagine, you know, as the sun moves around the building, there's so much glass, you get to see the shadows move and...
Never ever the same. Light is always important. And this was an opportunity starting from scratch because here we could have the sun all the day, from when it came up to when it went down.
The sun is rising there over the sea in the morning, see it coming up like just that over the sea, and then right in the evening there it's setting in the summer behind me, and then in the winter it's more over the power station. So it's like one big clock of the seasons, and you're living with it. It's very, a very primitive but a lovely feeling.
That sense of well-being comes also from Pauline and David's choice of a much simpler approach to life.
So in terms of the discipline then, how easy has that been? Finding stuff, putting it in here, not over-cluttering it, you know, being...
Easy. No, we have the painting, but because it's so light, we can just take it down in the evening.
So you put your telly?
Yeah.
I like the fact that there isn't a button to press and some complicated machinery rotates the entire wall.
The vital organs of the building are neatly hidden away around the chimney stack, and extra storage runs the length of the living room.
And then we come to the kitchen.
This of itself, this unit we're in, is actually effectively a piece of wall. I mean, the wall's been pushed out here. You've shunted the whole thing out.
The architects have cleverly stolen some space by cantilevering out over the original permitted footprint.
Shall I show you the upstairs?
On and up.
Off we go.
Their next space-conjuring trick was to sneak a mezzanine bedroom below the low-pitched roof.
What a charming, light space up in the east.
Thank you.
You know, which is beautiful, and a great view out, which almost looks like a frosted window today because of the cloud. That sort of haze, you know? Yeah.
And then if you turn around, you see
oh,
the sea.
blimey, you get to see the horizon. So here you can genuinely lie in bed and in the morning
straight out.
watch the shipping and...
Yes.
Yeah. So this window is lower because we're lying down.
Yeah.
And that one's higher because you're sitting on the bench.
Capturing those views, conjuring space and storage, and connecting Pauline and David to their remarkable surroundings, all within the planning constraints, was a task that fell to architect Sinisha Roddick.
There were lots of constraints, and the only way to actually extend what used to be a rather small building was to effectively bring together various outbuildings as sheds and create this kind of idea of a cluster.
And that idea of cluster is really strong here on the coastline, isn't it? Because every house has got its cluster of sheds and outhouses with it.
It does, and I think we wanted to retain this sense of randomness, and we played endlessly with kind of how these three little individual rooms can actually sit in relation to each other, so that they're sometimes beautiful, but sometimes they're conflicting.
North Vat made the judges' longlist because of its elegant mix of high architecture and beach living. It allows Pauline and David to occupy every room and always connect to the landscape, which they can enjoy to its fullest extent.
What I've learned today is that if you want to build in the spirit of the shack, then you must be very careful not to fall into the pitfalls of pastiche and conceit. Now, in this place, the brilliance of it is down to its modesty, its simplicity, the fact that despite being an perfectly habitable, modern building, it has the simple dignity of the shed.
From the humble shed to a Victorian villa, Damion Burrows went to Harrogate to investigate the next home on the RIBA's long list. From the front, it might look traditional, but at the back, its Victorian heritage has accommodated something a little more up-to-date. This very modern conversion is made up of a day room and small corridor that leads to a children's play area and utility room. An angular lean-to provides a new staircase that links this lower space to the kitchen above. It may only be a 66 square metre conversion, but it's been chosen by the judges for its transformative effect, revitalising what was a dark and dingy basement, and so unlocking the potential of the whole house. Ruth Donnelly was the architect for the home's owners.
It's very much about trying to draw you into the space downstairs. And I guess that's what the angles of the roof do. And these angles help to reflect light into the dining room and the kitchen.
So by adding this small extension to the side of the house, you're actually allowing the owners to entertain in the kitchen whilst keeping an eye on the children that are playing in the garden, and just open up all of that visual connection through the house.
It also creates an acoustic connection because we've created these new openings into the dining room and into the kitchen, and obviously into the basement rooms. If the children are downstairs playing in the playroom or in the day room, watching a bit of telly, playing a game, they can hear.
So, Ruth, what led to the layout of the plan down here?
The whole purpose of the opening of the basement was to create a big living space which opened directly to the garden, and then a playroom at the back. There's a sliding door which can partition that off and hide all sorts of sins.
There's no getting away from the fact that it is a slightly challenging ceiling height. Was there ever a temptation to just dig down a bit more?
There was a real temptation because one of the owners is very tall, but it was just going to cost tens of thousands of pounds more, which wasn't worth it really. There were a few things that we could do to make it feel bigger. One was to obviously use the same floor throughout, and the other was to maintain the ceiling all the way throughout. So we've pushed all the structural elements up into the ceiling void. And also the use of full height doors helps give the impression that, again, quite a grand space.
Outside, the owners wanted something modern yet understated. Ruth chose fibre cement board, made from cement and reinforcing fibres. It's tough, sleek and cost-effective.
So it's when you step outside here that you really notice the quality of this material.
The reason we chose it was because it's very much a hard, flat material. It's not going to pockmark over time, and we could use it for the walls and the roof. But in doing that, it caused a few technical difficulties in the design front, because essentially this is just a facade. It's not providing any waterproofing. All the waterproofing is hidden behind, so any rain that gets in sort of gets through the gaps and just runs down the side of the building to these channels on the floor here.
So that's how you can maintain this sort of stealth-like shape.
Fibre cement board is extremely durable and often used for commercial buildings, but it works perfectly well here. Its dark, flat finish also quietly refers to the roof's black eaves and soffits, while respecting the home's Victorian character.
We've got one more box of tricks to look at before we discover which two have made it to the judge's shortlist.
Coming up, a house squeezed into the site of a former garage.
The visionary late Georgian architect Sir John Soane wanted a home that was also a museum to display his prolific collection of architectural bits and artworks, and where he couldn't display them, he cleverly used every inch of space to store the overflow. This next house in our search for the RIBA House of the Year is an extraordinary example of how people can live happily alongside an art collection.
Damion Burrows has been to visit this extraordinary home on the south coast, dedicated to the art of its owners.
There's artwork all around this house, from fantastic murals in front to a beautifully carved stone plaque announcing the name. Even approaching the house, there's tiny little bits of artwork even inlaid in the floor.
The narrow house is just 4.7 metres wide, built on the site of a former garage. The RIBA praised it for being part home, part gallery, and part lookout post over the sea. Made of concrete, the semi-submerged ground floor is mainly utility space with a spare bedroom. On the first floor, there's a living area, kitchen, diner, and TV room at the back. Above is a master bedroom, bathroom, and office. And on top, a glorious terrace. It's home to art collector Rose, who lives here with her husband, Brian.
Rose, how are you?
Very well, come in.
Thank you. My God, wow, look at this floor. It's amazing. I love these tiles.
I collected them
bit by bit from junk shops. It gives you an excuse to go into a junk shop, have you any tiles, and brought them from the house we used to live next door.
They lived here for 40 years. It was 3 times the size and packed with art, which Rose has collected since 1963. The new house, built from their old garage, had to somehow absorb it all.
Rose, I love this house. This is fantastic. You have so many pieces of art. It's a very carefully crafted house.
It is,
What was the brief? What did you want to achieve from this?
I wanted a house that would be okay to be by the sea. It had to be someone who could make a wonderful house on a tiny space. I think if you have as much space as you want, you don't build a good house. It'll just be, you know, all over the shop.
Everything's better with constraints,
I think so. I think it gives it shape and it gives it purpose. And the purpose of this house was really the art. I mean, they were wonderful, the architects. They humoured me, and I dragged them to the Soane Museum because of which I'm sure you know very well.
Yeah, I do.
Because of this, we have to do it quite gently.
Shall I get this one?
Yeah, yes, please.
Ah.
And so that makes a lot more space.
Wow. I mean, you can never tire of that, can you?
No, and I just keep adding to it.
Stealing John Soane's ideas to layer artwork was a good idea. To combine them with the use of modern materials like steel mesh was even more ingenious.
Because you can move it so easily with the clips, you can just clip them, unclip them and move them. I can squeeze them all up together and get some more in.
Very clever. There's a fantastic exposed sort of quality to the house. You can see the materials everywhere.
Yes, I like this. I like it because it's honest and it's functional, but concrete also happens to be beautiful.
And one of the things that's also particularly nice is your use of mirror on the reveals here. They just expand your view, don't they? You almost forget the neighbours are there.
You don't see them at all. They don't see us. And you can just look out and see this immense horizon going on and on.
It's truly beautiful.
Gives me shivers on. I get a frisson even now. So beautiful.
I could stand here all afternoon. There's just artwork absolutely everywhere.
Yes.
You must have run out of space now. Surely.
Well, I have, but I haven't. There, I'll show you something.
That is fantastic. Using these sliding screens in such an ingenious way. Fantastic. This is such a lovely room. It feels very intimate, it feels very warm, it feels like a study.
Yes, well, I think that we felt, you know, you don't always want to be in a wide open space. Sometimes you want to sort of be cosy and cuddle up.
The sliding panel door that separates these 2 rooms off, it's a great little piece of architecture.
Yes, it works beautifully.
Are there any other little moments like that?
Yes, there's several around the house, but there's actually one in here that is...
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it just closes it all out, but still lets that
Yes,
little bit of dappled light through.
Yes.
Coming back out into the staircase here, Rose, it really reinforces just how narrow the site is.
Rose chose architect Sanai Hopkins to magic this remarkable house out of her old garage.
Well, it was going to be a precast frame, but there just simply wasn't the room for the crane. So we then fell back onto, you know, how the houses on the terrace were traditionally built, which was just in situ concrete, which gives it a character that actually makes it more grounded. But the challenge was condensing what was in there into what was in effect a car parking space.
On the first floor, there's a bedroom, bathroom, and private space and storage for Ruth's husband, Brian.
Very ingeniously, our architects devised a way of generating that there.
The whole thing slides out?
The whole thing slides out, and then there's another one behind it.
What do you have in this section of it?
I use this as a working office. And then, on occasion, I have a light sleeper. We developed use for this capacity.
Oh, I see. So you've got even a pull-down bed in here as well.
Yes, indeed. It comes right down like that.
Fantastic.
And do another.
So this is a This is for late night working or
yes,
when you've had an argument.
A few of those. And
It's a hard-working part of the house, isn't it? This. It's a hard-working space.
it is very intense, yes, but it's been made to work very well, and I congratulate the artists on what they've done with the space. It's good.
In the bedroom, yet more art has been ingeniously stored away.
That's amazing against the yellow. Is that incredible?
And also used to screen off Rose's bath.
Can I see what the view's like
Yes.
from there?
Help yourself.
Very
Face the
easy.
sea. And then relax.
Ah, wow. This is quite something, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Nothing between you and the sea.
I'll take that glass of wine.
Despite the narrowness of the house, it really opens up out to the sky up on the roof terrace.
Right, this is
this.
our beach in the sky.
This is fantastic. It's that ultimate reward, isn't it, for going up the three
Yeah, up the
flights, that
stairs.
narrow staircase,
Yes.
and then right at the end, bang.
As art has spilt out onto the roof, it also spread down into the basement.
This is a great room. You've got a beast of a concrete
Yes.
wall there.
That was the original seawall at the back of the garage. It's not been hidden. It's just concrete, which is what we're talking about. It's simple, and it's useful, and it's strong. I love it.
The narrow house wonderfully demonstrates just how much house you can get out of a very restricted site. This eccentric building uses modern industrial materials like concrete and steel to produce multi-layered rooms. It is both a home and a storage box full of wit and surprise. So, which two of these 5 extraordinary homes will the judges pick for the shortlist? The garden house, a TARDIS with a bejewelled pyramidal planted roof. The modern Muse, which elegantly conjures light and space from nowhere. North Vat, a dense cluster of striking sheds that revel in their landscape. The basement conversion that revitalises a Victorian home in Harrogate. Or the narrow house, part home, part gallery. So, it is now time to find out which of these lovely, alluring buildings has made it to the shortlist for House of the Year 2016. It's been an arduous task for the judges to decide. But after much deliberation, the head of the jury, Meredith Bowles, has the results. So Meredith, tell me, which is the first of these small projects that you've shortlisted?
So the first one is Garden House by Hayhost & Co. in East London. There is so much going on. I mean, I think they've taken every opportunity that's going and made something of it, including the roof. Who would have thought it? Which the neighbours now look onto and is a huge benefit for them.
Yeah, that takes some beating.
But it's a lot more to it than that, I think. If it was just the roof, it wouldn't be on the shortlist. This is a very clever use of space. There's tiny spaces that are made bigger through the use of reflections and roof lights. You know, they've really maximised, as you said, what's there into something which is bigger than you thought might be able to go there.
We never, I must admit, we never ever entertained or thought that this would happen or that we'd become involved with some sort of process like this.
We built this for ourselves. You know, I didn't expect it to be a piece of architecture out there in the world, as it were. So I think that...
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It's something that's happened that we didn't really imagine.
Tell me about this next small house that you've shortlisted.
So this is Modern Muse by Coffey Architects in West London. This is another job where the existing building has been completely reimagined. It's clever. It's 3 stories deep, going down into a basement, and it manages to get light right down into it, such that all the rooms actually feel pretty fabulous to be in. That's the cleverness of it. But then how it's actually been resolved and built, the craftsmanship of it, the intricacy of the detailing, the sliding screens, one room being able to see to the next. I mean, they love that.
That's so exciting. I can't believe we've been shortlisted. It's such a privilege. You know, we started this project to make a special home for our family and to have a long-term future living in London, and to have the work that the architectural team, our contractor team, and we have put into it. It's just really special.
All of the houses that we've seen in this programme are exquisite. They're all beautiful. And they are all born of the need to deal with some really difficult constraints, things like lack of storage and space and light. But 2 of them have made it to the shortlist, not because they deal with these constraints in any better way, but because the architects have brought to these buildings other qualities, things like joy and delight. Every year, the Royal Institute of British Architects holds a competition to find Britain's best new house. And after the success of last year's televised event, I'm giddily excited to say that House of the Year is back with even more of these exceptional homes. We'll be taking you behind normally closed doors. Oh, ow! It's too small, that door. To see some of the most original and mind-boggling new houses in the country that have won the hearts and minds of the judges.
A large, black, charcoal textured box.
So far, we've seen houses built in the open landscape.
How brilliant is that? That is, in a way, the money shot.
Houses that are deeply experimental.
Very elegant, it's like a Georgian staircase, this.
And houses that magic space from small sites.
What a charming, light space up in the eaves.
Thank you.
Today, we'll finish looking at all the contenders and add one more of them to the shortlist.
Beam me up, Scotty.
And then, at the end of this programme, we'll be finding out here on Channel 4 which one of the homes is the RIBA House of the Year for 2016. These homes are truly remarkable. Each one is an example. We can take inspiration from all of them. So, come inside and have a good nosy around. We've almost completed our exploration of the homes on the RIBA's long list. Soon we'll discover the winner of House of the Year 2016, the sort of BAFTAs of the architecture world. The 6 projects already on the shortlist are the cleverly disguised outhouse, Ansty Plum, the uber-creative Murphy House, Covert House, the elegant modern Muse, and Garden House. This last category of homes deals with how to make the best of a tricky plot. Plots of land on which to build come in all kinds of awkward shapes and sizes, often with some very nasty constraints and no clue as to how to make the most of them. Add to that the usual problems, not enough money, planning obligations, really hostile neighbours, and you begin to see why that inviting little patch of ground has never been built on. And yet, with the right combination of energy and ingenuity, it can be done. This next group of houses have all risen out of the ground to make the very best of the site they stand on. So, imagine you have bought
a beautiful site with a magical walled garden. You've got a really restricted budget, but you've got big ambitions. What do you do? Well, the answer is you employ a brilliant architect, of course. Who builds you this?
The positioning here is key. This flint and cedar-clad house in Berkshire had to find the best possible arrangement on the site. On the ground floor, it's spacious, with a large open-plan kitchen and dining and living area looking out onto a sunken courtyard. There's also a study, a family room, bedroom and bathroom. Upstairs, there are 2 more bedrooms, a playroom, 2 bathrooms and the master bedroom. Binnith and his wife, Sian, are both hospital consultants. They used to live in a flat in Oxford, but wanted more space for their growing family.
Hi, Binnith.
Binnith, pleased to meet you.
Please come in.
Oh, big, long house. You know, from the front, it gives you no indication that it's this kind of size. It's sort of flipped round almost, so you look at the little side of the house as you approach it. Is that right?
It's designed to be really modest from the street.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to put a contemporary bit of architecture in the middle of a rural Berkshire village, so we wanted to hide away as much of the house.
It does that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the old walled garden, is it? Just
that's
there?
the old That's right. The walled garden used to belong to Basildon Park, which is a stately home just over there. So we bought the walled garden that you can't build in.
Yeah.
This little plot that you can build on.
Whoa. So you've really, really cut back into the hill.
The challenge for the architect, John Pardy, was to make the walled garden feel like part of the house without disturbing it.
What intrigues me about this, John, is that you sketched this building in from here, didn't you? When you first arrived. The idea for it came to you standing in the sky. It wasn't like this at all then, the garden.
This was derelict, yeah. Really overgrown. But spirit of place was here. So I knew you can't build in the garden, so it seemed natural, because south is that way, to put the house against the wall. And I thought, well, why not put the house as part of the wall?
In the wall?
On the wall.
On the wall, yeah, or the wall in the house, because it's the wall's rebuilt to an extent, isn't it? And it's...
Yeah, it's rebuilt, and we've made it so that you can see it's rebuilt. We've not tried to fake it.
Yeah.
Building into the wall and digging down allowed John to open up the opposite south-facing side of the house.
You've got this courtyard arrangement.
So she's Malaysian Chinese and I'm from South India, and the architecture in both cultures is built around the courtyard. So in South India it's called the Naliketu, which is 4 walls, which enclose a courtyard.
And in Chinese it's 四合院. So it's again 4 walls.
The RIBA judges loved the way this house virtuously straddles 2 worlds. On the one side, an Asian courtyard, on the other, a classic English walled garden. But the wall wasn't the only hurdle.
You've got a lot of neighbours here.
We've got 4 on this side, 3 on this side, and then 1 on this side and another one. So that's 9 neighbours.
I don't believe you, because I can't see any of them.
Well, this is one of the cleverest things about this house, because actually the openings on the windows give you the feeling that there aren't any.
There are plenty of other clever ideas to discover here.
So is this storage here?
This is storage, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a little writing desk with a little storage inside.
Who's the storage nut?
Well, I like storage because you can live in a minimal house with storage. The staircase is all about storage. So this little gap there for suitcases. Up here.
Oh, they've got a sort of step-shaped profile.
That's right, all cupboards.
Gosh, it's like they say, you're never, more than 10 feet away from a rat in a city. In this house, you're never more than 6 foot away from a cupboard. Oh, great, long view, full length of building with windows either end. That's clever. I'm assuming there's a blind there, precisely because there is a view of a house.
There is a view of a house. So where there is a view of the house, there is some
Oh, yeah. You can just see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the playroom.
Oh, look, what a magical view out there, because it's, she's sort of living in the world of Peter Rabbit.
Yeah.
The daughter's bedroom is just as delightful. And finally, the master bedroom.
Beautiful. And again, no sense of being overlooked. One is you seem to have a wooden bath.
That's right. It's a Japanese ofuro bath. So it's just a tall bath that you can sit in.
For two people?
For two people, yeah.
And then look out of the window.
I'm blown away by how this house sits so well on its plot and makes the most of its setting.
So the beautiful bath, of course, enjoys a beautiful view across the meadow here. You might yourself not particularly be happy about this great expanse of glass next to your bath, but you see, it's a naked view. No one can see directly in. So you don't need curtains. Although there is, I've noticed, actually, a blind. There's a blind and a trough up here. Interestingly, the budget in this house for all of the blinds, they are commercial blinds, they're used in offices, not houses, was less than the cost of having a bespoke pair of curtains made that would have been never knowingly undersold. It's impressive, isn't it?
The house took under a year to fully design and just another year to build.
Did you enjoy the process?
Parts of it, yes. I think I did enjoy parts of it. The big wobble was when our project manager left. He sent us a letter to say he was leaving. And I got it in the evening after came home from work, opened it, read it, panic. I rang John, I think around 9 p.m. And he said, don't worry. And the next day I was on site and he arrived on site with a beauty contest of builders for me to pick between. So they helped us when the project was in trouble.
So you were involved in the construction then?
That's right. I mean, I haven't laid a brick, but but the sourcing and
management.
Yeah, management.
Wow.
Part of it is just clever use of materials. So the flint outside is not traditional flint. They're concrete blocks, but flint embedded, and that reduces time on site. Walls go up quickly, and all you have to do is point them in.
This house is itself the threshold between Asian Zen and English country garden.
You may have noticed that there is no television in here. That's not a bad thing, because ordinarily all the furniture tends to get organised around the television. Here, however, there is a wood burner, so you can sit on this multi-directional sofa and meditate, looking at the flames, or you can look over here at this, the wall, and you've got this sort of blank, meditative space. It's very zen. Or, for that matter, over here, there's the garden. I mean, I can sit here, and within minutes, I'm transported across the planet to another world of East meets West, Asian fusion. It's fabulous. One thing it is not is the home counties.
Houses that have to respond considerately to a sensitive setting have won this competition in the past. In 2010, the award went to this extension to a 19th century building, Hunset Mill, nestled in the Norfolk countryside.
When we first bought the house, which was in 2004, it was not quite bad enough to knock the whole thing down, but we always had a plan to substantially renovate it and extend it. You couldn't see the river and you couldn't see the windmill, so we wanted to be able to maximise views of those things, and we wanted more space.
Architect Friedrich Ludwig satisfied the brief with black charred timber and a lot of reflective glass, so the new extension almost disappears.
Actually, it's a very simple timber structure, something which is more of a shadow of the house, but it is a small shadow that sits at the back. As you then slowly make your way around, you will suddenly find one and then two or three shadows as you go.
The judges loved the inventiveness of the design and describe it as more akin to a piece of art than a piece of rural architecture. The locals, apparently, put it more bluntly.
There was a bit of shock in the boating community. But now, what's really lovely is you could be sitting in the garden, they come around the corner, and suddenly the cameras come out, and there's an, "Oh, wow, have you seen this? It's lovely," type comments.
So, that's what it takes to become House of the Year.
We've got 3 more houses to see before we'll know the complete shortlist for this year's competition. And then we'll be finding out the big winner of the RIBA House of the Year 2016. Coming up, a colourful community of little buildings in West London. What do those same people say when they walk around the corner and see a bunch of red sheds? And a hard-fought family home in Chetle Hume.
What were the worst complaints?
We can't repeat some of those.
Every new house begins life on paper as an ideal, as a vision of perfection. One that quickly becomes mired in the problems of budget, size, and the mounting opposition of the NIMBYs. Not in my backyard, thank you. This next house survives an extreme case of all 3. Unlike its neighbours, this house in the Manchester suburb of Chetle Hume has been squeezed onto a small plot. The ground floor is dominated by an open plan arrangement of an entrance hall, living space, dining area and south-facing kitchen. There's also a children's playroom, a bedroom and a study. The smaller upper level has 3 more bedrooms, each facing south, with a bathroom at the northern end of the house. It's home to Pete, who works in IT, his wife Sally, and their 2 children.
Hi, Damion.
Peter, how are you?
Very well. Welcome. Come on in.
Thank you.
Damion Burrows went to meet them.
Hiya.
Hi, Sally. How are you doing? You well?
Very well, thank you, yeah.
From the outside, the house feels like it's quite enclosed, but as soon as you come into this main space, it's filled with light and windows.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of part of the original brief, wasn't it? That there'd be lots of natural light in every room.
One of the biggest things we wanted was this open plan living space, but we also wanted a room divider, something that was open, that connected the spaces, but also gave us that separation, if you like, between the living space and what is through here, which is the family and entertaining dining space.
For such a compact house, there's a lot of open, airy space. A steel and plywood staircase leads to the first floor, where you find the family bathroom and 3 south-facing bedrooms.
This is the master bedroom.
Oh, wow. When did you first think we want to build our own house?
We were at a point where the family was expanding and also we had an extremely tight budget. And as it happened, my parents owned this plot of land. It was used as a garden and allotment space by my dad. In fact, the gate through to their house is just at the end of the garden there, you can see.
It's a bit cosy, isn't it, there?
It is, yeah.
Almost too cosy.
Yeah.
Is there a lock on both sides of the gate or just one?
Just on ours.
Just on ours. Does that mean that that's the house that you grew up in?
Yeah, that's right. Got some photographs here from back in the day. This is a good one of the plot, actually. Me in the back garden.
God, yeah.
That dog's probably buried under the house somewhere as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Part of the foundation. So, what were the first designs like?
We thought we'd have to build a very sort of traditional house because some of the houses are traditional around here. But actually, it was the opposite to that. The planners are very much, it has to be contemporary. It's got to have architectural merit. So then it got really exciting, the first bit, drafts back from the architect. And your dad looked horrified, actually, when we showed him.
What have I done?
It looks like a factory or something like that.
So much of the design is about organising the rooms and windows so they can absorb the largest amount of light from the south. The RIBA judges were impressed that the tightly constrained site, a limited budget, and the proximity of so many neighbours hadn't restricted the architect in his ambition to build a beautifully crafted home.
David, the house, to me, seems like it almost kind of like pushes out wherever it can.
Well, I think one of the key features of the area is the amount of greenery that we've got. The box at the top was almost reaching out and touching the trees. So at least when the neighbours walk past the site, they don't really see too much of the harder, grounded brickwork. It is more about the lightweight timber that's talking to the trees.
But despite David's best efforts and Pete and Sally's best intentions, there were 30 individual objections to the plans from local residents.
What were the worst complaints?
We can't repeat some of those on air.
There was a couple, wasn't there? Somebody said it looked like 3 porta cabins stacked on top of each other. It was really upsetting.
At any point, did you think, that's it, I've just had enough, we can't do this anymore?
By that point, we'd already invested too much into it, not just financially, but of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was our chance of a lifetime, really, our one chance to do this. So we had to go for it.
Crucial to the outcome was the opinion of the local council's conservation officer.
I quite like to see good modern design, because if it's good design, it will take account of what's around it. It will try and complement it. Conservation is very different from preservation. Conservation acknowledges that change is inevitable. What we want to do is manage it so that it happens in the best interests of everybody.
The neighbours who have been most affected are, of course, the ones on the other side of the garden gate, Pete's parents, Michael and Jackie.
I love it. I love the open space and I love everything about it. I really like it. He finds it harder to...
The house, it's not necessarily quite to my taste, particularly with the windows being so large and going right down from floor level to ceiling level. If they don't close the shutters, you can see every detail of the room, or you could if you look. But we get on very well.
I think we were really glad to have them coming. And we will be glad when we get old, won't we? We are old already.
Crafted architecture that carefully infills suburbia like this can bring the generations together and in doing so revitalise a place. But stitching in a house like this is not easy.
It was emotional, stressful, but ultimately it's brilliant, and actually we've achieved something we never could have achieved if we'd bought somewhere, and we've created something that's very much for us. It's a pleasure to live here.
A new building plot can be small, but that doesn't mean you can't make a big impression.
You know, sometimes when houses are hidden away behind the street front, it's hard to find the entrance, but not in this case. I mean, this is an architect who really knows how to make an entrance.
This grand arch looks like something from the 19th century, but in fact it's newly built, with a tiny entrance.
Ow! That really hurts. It's too small, that door.
It's a portal to a looking-glass world filled with small, brightly coloured buildings. At 216 square metres, Tin House is bigger than it looks. It's in West London and made up of 6 steel-clad structures in a horseshoe arrangement. At one end is a pod containing the master bedroom and a bathroom. Connected to that is the dressing room and entrance hall. At the bottom of the horseshoe is the living room, and next to it, the kitchen and dining area. Only the last 2 boxes have upper and lower floors, containing bedrooms on top and living spaces underneath.
Hello. How are you both? Henning?
Very well.
Good to see you.
Architect Henning Stummel built this house for himself and his partner Alice and their 2 teenage daughters.
The buildings look like a little collection of huts, Balinese sheds or Indian shacks. It's unusual, for sure. What do those same people say when they walk around the corner and see a bunch of red sheds?
The origin of the whole thing is that the site isn't rectangular, and we wanted to create a courtyard and thinking of the spaces as pods and then sort of pushing them out as far as you can.
By following the wonky edge of the site and then working in, Henning has utilised and enclosed every drop of space.
So tell me about what was on the site beforehand when you found it.
I think it was a breaker's yard. I think they used to just have cars and they'd take them apart and let all the fluids run into the ground.
So you had a lot of remediation to do then?
Well, excavated really.
And
we took
got
away
rid
a
of?
metre off the whole site because it was potentially contaminated.
How much did all that cost you?
£50,000.
You build a small house for that, you
just
see.
to get back to nothing, and now we can start.
In we go. Looking forward to this. Oh. Oh. Oh, wow. Oh, it doesn't disappoint. It's big. That's the really surprising thing. I mean, the building seems so modest outside, and you get in, and the thing's expanded. So there are no lengths of steel in this?
No.
It's just a wooden...
The whole thing is a timber frame building,
yeah,
which we did because of sustainability, and also because you can just work it on site and just tweak it.
With the house pressed up against its neighbour's walls, the only option to position windows was either in the courtyard or as skylights at the top of each pyramidal roof.
The majority of the light's coming from above. So what does that bring you, Alice?
The angle of the sun, you're really aware of it in this building because it does different things with the outside and with the inside, which is lovely. You've got daylight coming in from above, which is, you don't get that from windows at the side.
So this is the hall, which is also your dressing room?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The arrangement of rooms leads you in two directions. From the kitchen, you can walk through to the master bedroom.
Gosh.
Which also has a bath.
Ooh.
If you go the other way, you find yourself in the opposite wing, where the teenagers sleep.
Oh, bedroom. On a sort of mezzanine. The wall height here is only, what, 1.9 metres? But the room seems so much bigger thanks to these huge ceilings. So just as the outside is very red, the inside is very orange.
Burnt toffee.
Burnt toffee, sorry. Orange. It's all self-coloured MDF.
That's right, yes. And the advantage is you can router it out, so you can get handles and things like that.
And the colour's still in the material?
Exactly.
Even on this tight plot, Henning and Alice have allowed themselves one very extravagant feature.
Some of us would just call it a works chimney. I assumed, look at that. It's like Bankside Power Station. See, when I saw that from the yard, I assumed that it was a rebuild of a remnant chimney that was here that you felt, or that the planners felt had to be rebuilt, but...
No, it's entirely new. There was nothing here before.
And it's
all because of the wood burner, which is fabulous, and it creates a really cosy atmosphere in this room in the winter.
That's lovely. I think it's a neat thing.
Most eye-catching of all, of course, is the red oxide steel cladding on the outside.
So where does the red come from?
We've been influenced a lot by Scandinavia. We go to Sweden a lot. And just reminiscent of the colours you see in Stockholm and places like that.
Yeah. Iron oxide.
It was to go with the London brick. Okay. The idea was it does fit in with its
surroundings. There's red rub bricks.
This Swedish-made steel has a weatherproof coating made using rapeseed oil, which is much more environmentally friendly than conventional oil-based paint.
This material is a mould steel. It's very popular all over Sweden and Scandinavia. So this particular panel would have come before these joints were folded. Would have come on a 100-kilo coil. We then cut it to length, and then we run it for a profiling machine, which forms your male and your female joint. They are then fixed to the wall or the roof with stainless steel clips on nails, and then crimping it together afterwards to create 100% weather seal. It's only 0.6 of a millimetre thick, but it's very, very durable, and it will last, 50 years plus.
The RIBA judges loved the sculptural quality of this project and the inventiveness of the design. It's a playful way to transform a piece of London wasteland into an architectural jewel.
There's a lesson in this building that in taking a really difficult, constrained site, you have to bring a great deal of rigour and discipline and focus and organisation, the kind of things that architects are very good at doing, but not at the expense of wit and imagination and fun and the experiences of a lifetime, all of which, of course, when woven together, can produce this magic personal wonderland. So, we've now seen 3 of the 4 houses in this episode. Just one more to go before we discover which of them has made it to the shortlist.
We're travelling the length and breadth of the country, following the Royal Institute of British Architects competition to find the best new house in the UK in 2016.
So, we'll be finding out who the winner is later on in the programme, but first we've got one more contender to visit.
This house, in a suburb of Newcastle, made from concrete and timber, had to be deliberately set back from the road to capture the best views from the plot. On the ground floor is a snug, and behind that, a gym. There's also a large combined kitchen, dining and living space. Upstairs, there's a bathroom, 3 bedrooms and the master bedroom. And finally on top is a study that looks out onto a sedum roof.
Morning, Damion.
Morning, Rob.
How you doing?
Damion Burrows went to find out more.
It's amazing.
Rob is the owner of this house. He's a self-made man and runs a successful local business.
Rob, this is an amazing entrance to a house.
Thank you.
What was the brief to the architect?
Well, the key part about the house and where it sits in the landscape was, you know, essentially the views to the back and take in, you know, the landscape, really, the colours, the outside. And it's elevated. It's quite limited space where you can actually get views.
Rob is clearly a man who knows what he wants from a bespoke house. The snug has big windows to capture southern light, and the gym has plenty of space to work out. And Rob hasn't been afraid to indulge himself with the upstairs rooms either.
Oh, okay, that's a surprise. The interior of the bathroom is just completely different to the rest of the house. What's the material?
It's a Welsh slate. It's got the same tones as slate I came across when I was driving through Switzerland at Val's Therme. The whole place is built of slate. You know, it's a very dark space. It's you know, it's soothing. It's natural.
Oh God, wow! This is quite some dressing room. Have you got handles on your mirror?
It was a trip to New York. Unearthed one of the old windows from the Flatiron building.
That's a great find. It's beautiful.
Doesn't make me look any better.
Wow, Rob.
There's no doubt where the best views are to be found here. Although this house is hemmed in on both sides, it makes the most of this wonderful elevated view at the back to open out onto the Northumberland countryside.
That view is just absolutely stunning. It frames all of that absolutely perfectly.
The first thing Rob did when he bought the site was demolish the bungalow that was on it. But his architectural ambition for something very much of the 21st century was thwarted by the planning committee.
We initially had a slightly taller building, and we were asked to actually reduce that in scale. But at the same time, the local planning committee weren't keen that we had a flat roof building, so they actually demanded that we added a pitched roof onto this building. Because we were forced down that line, then we actually added another space at the roof, more of an attic type space.
So it was a bit of a lucky game, really.
Very much so.
What sets this project apart is this amazing double height space. Was that in your mind from day one?
Rob was very keen to have his living room at the back, facing the garden. But obviously the sunlight comes round from the street. And so what we decided to do was to create this space to allow the sunlight to penetrate deep into the house, where he could be in his living room and actually being hit by the sun.
And then that wonderful strip of glazing in the top. just creates this fantastic effect of the light actually sort of pouring in.
As the sun comes through, it hits each individual timber in a different way for a very short period of time, but just lights up the space. It was purely by chance, but it's something we'll maybe use again.
I think you should, definitely, that's for sure.
The full-height corridor is a staggering piece of theatre, a light sculpture that also illuminates the interior. The RIBA also admired the clarity and rhythm of this design, which combines the skills and craftsmanship of the architect with the vision of the client.
You get that nice feeling, so if you come in, it's relaxed, it's a little bit serene. Well, really, I think if you can, you want to get a little bit, well, where you want to be all the time, which is on holiday.
So that's it. We finished our national tour of the long list, but before we discover who's won, we need to find out which of the homes in this programme have made the shortlist. We've seen the Chetle House, stitched into a traditional walled garden. The house in Chetle Hume, subtly camouflaged behind a screen of trees. Tin House, a collection of red oxide huts. And the house in Northumberland, with a spectacular light corridor. So now we approach the great moment where we discover which of these extraordinary new houses has made it onto the shortlist. Last year's winner, architect Charlotte Skeen-Catling, was a judge and has the verdict. So, Charlotte, if I'm right, there's only one of these houses which you've shortlisted.
Yeah.
And which is it?
This is the Tin House by Henning Stummer.
In West?
In West London, in West London.
What were the big ideas that you kind of couldn't resist?
Well, it's taking a very awkward backlot site and it's filling it in a very witty way that creates beautiful spaces, where each room is given its own separate building. And it's very powerful because it's a very singular idea that is carried through very beautifully.
I very much liked the red oxide. Do you like it?
It's not my favourite colour, I have to say, but I think the idea of applying one colour to the whole surface is a great one.
And had it all been done in a kind of dark grey, pre-patinated zinc, you know, we'd all be disappointed, wouldn't we?
Yes.
There's a bit
I
standard
agree.
formula.
I agree. Architects and colour, they're absolutely terrified of each other.
Yeah, that comes as good.
That's very exciting and fantastic news. Yeah, I mean that's wonderful. Thank you. All these amazing houses that are being built.
It's formidable,
it's a huge honour.
architecture.
It's wonderful.
So, now we know all of the 7 houses which have made it onto the RIBA shortlist for House of the Year. The burning question, of course, is, which is the winner? Well, I have to say, it's been a huge amount of fun and no small privilege to be able to visit and to enjoy so many of the homes which are up for the RIBA 2016 House of the Year. Yeah, as ever, I am astonished by the way in which architecture continues to address the questions of how we should live, how well we should make our homes. And of all the homes on the shortlist, the question remains, of course, which is the winner? The 7 in the running to be crowned House of the Year are the cleverly concealed outhouse by Chris Loyne, the beautiful Ansty Plum restored by Copin Dockeray, the marvellous mechanical house by Richard Murphy, the semi-submerged Covert house by DSDHA, the intricately crafted modern Muse by Phil Coffey, the exquisitely layered garden house by Hayhurst & Co., and finally, the extraordinary tin house by Henning Stummer. It's time to find out the verdict of the RIBA judges for the 2016 House of the Year. And I'm going to visit the winner, a project that demonstrates how great design cannot exist in isolation, but should enrich everything around it. What a delightful meeting between the 18th century and the 21st. This house is a corker. This is Murphy House in Edinburgh. It stands like a futuristic bookend on an end-of-terrace plot in the heart of the city's 18th century new town. If ever there was a house that has had to work hard to get on with its neighbours, this is it.
My goodness. There's a little of 18th century Venice as well here.
It's a house that delights and intrigues you from the moment you walk in.
That's not a room, that's a mirror.
And it was built by the architect Richard Murphy as a home for himself.
Richard, hi. How are you? Hello. Sorry, I let myself in. That's all right. Good to see you. Yeah, great. It's not difficult to miss this house. Thank you. I had to come see this house. Had to come to Edinburgh, and you know why? No? Because you've won. Have we? You've won. Oh, blimey. Are you pleased?
Yes, I am pleased. It's well, of course I'm pleased. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Just put the cheque in the post.
So, what stood out about this house for the RIBA judges?
There's so much going on in this building, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's a completely magnificent and mad vision of what a house can be. And it's got this other layer, which is just pure playfulness. Heath Robinson, Wallace and Gromit, like opening the back of a clock and seeing how the mechanisms work. It's a really magical thing and quite mad.
What are the ideas that can be borrowed from a building like this?
An approach to how you fit something into a very complex site in a city.
So the way in which, for example, he doesn't have lots of circulation spaces. They sort of seem to always to be...
everything is just a space that's piled on top
multifunction.
And buried, part buried. And the pure playfulness, at the corners, the masonry walls that open up and reveal the bathtub to the rest of the street. It's very playful.
Mad and playful, perhaps, but seriously energy efficient and sustainable.
So this house completely changes between day and night, or summer and winter. If you want me to
How
give you a demo,
How do you close down?
Ah, well, let me show you. There's a variety of Wallace and Gromit style devices that do this. So, for example, if we start here, and then we have these. Go like that. So the main production is over here. I'll close off the clear story.
It's a curtain on a track. It's terrific. And each of these panels, is adding to the insulation.
Absolutely. And the one that always terrifies everyone.
Becoming winter. It's turning into night. Wowzer. Great. It turns what is actually a very porous, open building into something which is very closed down and woody.
Can we go back to summertime?
Yes, please. Let's go back to summertime.
This house redefines the phrase Murphy's Law. Here, anything that can be made to move will.
It only takes 30 seconds, so it's not a big deal, really.
No, although it does sort of rather redefine, would you mind drawing the curtains, dear?
Along with the moving parts, Murphy House is a masterpiece of compression. Richard has dug down to form this bedroom in the basement. There's another on the ground floor next to the garage. Altogether, there are 165 square metres of living space here, squeezed onto just 66 square metres of land.
It means that actually Richard had to think very hard about circulation and has minimised kind of loose dead-end space. So, for example, here's the study. His desk cheats over the landing down to the basement there in order to get that little bit of extra space. Cheated. Everything is interlocking, like a puzzle, mathematically set out, and then tricked up with the occasional use of mirror. And then you get these ambiguous spaces. This is a staircase, but it's also a library. This is a sitting room, but it's also access to the dining room and kitchen. You know, for nearly a century, architecture has been wrestling with this tradition of white walls and glass, sort of reduction of ideas into a really simple, straightforward order. And we recognise buildings that are like that. But this place belongs to an entirely different tradition. One, actually, that revels in autobiography, that delights in fine craftsmanship. This tradition is not afraid of complexity or the layering of ideas.
And you find that, most of all, in the master bedroom, right at the top of the house.
Oh, how delightful. Now, these little bedrooms, they're sort of psychologically in the deep recess of the cave, aren't they? They're the sort of snuggest place you want to be.
Yeah, all three of them are wooden boxes, effectively, cabins for sleeping in. But this one's quite dynamic.
Oh! That would wake you up, wouldn't it? This is like some kind of a cabinet of curiosities, something from the 18th century, isn't it?
This is the most eccentric thing about the house.
What is that? Oh, my word. That's a complete masonry panel which flies into the alley.
Yeah. And finally, rises al fresco bathing.
Too much. So suddenly you can arise from the bubbles naked and present yourself to the world.
I tend to close the shutters first before I do that. Yeah. The
But
first time I
actually-
used it, I learned that lesson, actually.
It's almost as though the building sort of dematerialises as you kind of start to open the stuff up. It's James Bond stuff or Thunderbirds. You know how some buildings pull off the old magic trick or two? You know, they suggest they might disappear or that they defy gravity in some ways. I mean, these are really good A-level architectural tricks, but this place pulls off the biggest trick of all, and it is no illusion. This place, with all its fizzes and pops and excitements, what this does is celebrate what it is to be human. This place celebrates life. It's the best trick of all, isn't it? If we are looking for clues as to where architecture is going in this century, then one place we can search is right here.